Howdy, friends. I want to tell you guys about the Covert short from Barbell Apparel. This is a hybrid short. It is my go-to, especially during these summertime months. It's a great pair of shorts to wear out on the range, out on the farm, working, even doing long hikes or stuff like that you don't necessarily want to wear a pair of running shorts. You want something with some structure to it, some good pockets. It's just a really well-built short from Barbell Apparel. A lot of features in it, a lot of pockets, a lot of places to put things, and it's light enough and comfortable enough to not sweat your butt off while you're out doing what you're doing, out on the range, working, hiking, whatever that activity may be. We've been with Barbell Apparel for a long time. We love them. We love their products. We love their apparel. We use their apparel pretty much primarily when we're out running with their running shorts and apparel. And even just in our everyday life, whatever we're doing, they have got something that fits well, that functions well, and they stand behind their product. So if you guys are needing some new apparel for whatever your walk of life may be or activity that you're doing, check out Barbell Apparel at barbellapparel.com. You won't be disappointed in what you get, and it'll last you a long, long time. So thanks, Barbell Apparel. You guys check them out. Again, barbellapparel.com.
Separate from each other.
Rich, man, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for making the trip, brother. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I want to start our conversation with the Bible verse that you use that has kind of become, I would almost say, part mission statement, part creed, kind of defining your life, man. I want you to share that with us, and I'm interested to hear you just kind of break that down and where that came from and how it has served you throughout your life, brother.
Micah 6:8, he has showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So I want what is good. I think everybody I know wants what is good in their life, but we think good is temporary. It's this meal I'm going to have. It's this relationship I'm going to have. It's this stuff that's all surface level. But God wants what is good. It's much deeper, much more impressive. And so if he's saying this was good, then I want that. So to do justice. For the Gospel Rescue Mission, we actually have our statement. We've kind of taken that and kind of, marketed it, for lack of a better term. Says our purpose of Gospel Rescue Mission Oklahoma is to help individuals and our community to flourish with God leading the way. So in the community is this justice side. And when Solomon prays for wisdom, he's actually praying for wisdom of justice. How do I do this justice thing? It's not simple. It is difficult. How do you work with these men and women who are homeless and still interact with your community? It's not cool for the homeless to be hanging out at your city park, taking showers in the water parks, causing trash and doing all those sort of things. But it's also not cool to put them in jail all the time and to beat them up and do those things. So how do we find this mutual place that justice is actually served? If they have addiction, how can we help get them into recovery when many people in recovery aren't ready to go get that help? It's a challenge. So that's one piece, is this whole community element. To love mercy, that's what we do on a regular. This is what the mission has done. This is what most shelters are doing. They are showing mercy to the homeless. And they want to give them that chance, give them that food, that shelter, that little bit of hope, that encouragement, maybe work training, those sort of things to try to get them back out, because they love the homeless person. But also sometimes we look the other way when they're misbehaving. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous for the community, and it's dangerous for them, because when they get away with something, they're going to go do it again and do it again. There's this kind of a scientific law that if I get away with something small, I'm going to take something bigger. If I got away with stealing gum, I might steal a whole pack next time, and I'll steal a little bit more. When I was in my addiction, I got away with all this different things. What actually got me to change was I got caught. I was driving. I was intoxicated, but I see this police officer. He's ready to ticket me, and this is a town that always tickets. I go, man, if he pulls me over, I'm not just going to take it for stealing. It's only. And he actually didn't catch me. He didn't actually pull me over, but it scared me. said, oh, you know what? I need to change. I need to make that happen.
Mhm.
So that individual is, but the truth is, it's so complicated and it's so difficult that I cannot possibly do it on my own.
Yeah.
I am not smart enough. I'm not wise enough. I could put together a committee of all the smartest people and get Einstein and all his friends in a room, and we're not going to be able to do this without God's help. Because he's going to say, okay, Rich, in this case, you need to give her mercy. You need to have this hard conversation with this guy. You need to love and care for them. So God's going to lead and direct us, but we got to submit to him first. I can't go out and do something and say, oh, can you fix my mistake? I just blew this. Can you fix it now? Because I just hurt somebody's feelings, or I gave him bad advice. But God can help me, keep me from all that. So again, Micah 6:8, he has showed you, man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And God brought that verse to me. The Kendrick brothers, I don't know if you're familiar with their movies, but they put together the movie as police officers. And that verse was somewhere in that movie, and then it was in the study guide that came with that. And man, when I read that, there's a fire that came up inside of me. And I was like, I got to do this the rest of my life. This is what my purpose is. And I got excited over that purpose. And I started living that. So the Kendrick brothers, I can probably thank them for highlighting that verse, putting a spotlight on it so God could use it.
That's good, brother. It is a complex problem that you've dedicated your life to solving. And it's a complex problem because it's a human problem, and humans are complex. When we start to peel back the layers on people's stories, even on our own stories, man, there's stuff there that we didn't even know was there. There's stuff, and I'm speaking about this from experience. When you're trying to serve humans who are in difficult spots, in many different areas and arenas, we should acknowledge that it is so complex that, yes, I would agree with you. Indeed, we do need the help of the Holy Spirit to give us discernment in what to say, how to act, how to respond. Because how can we decipher the web that some people's lives, and really you could say all humans' lives, have become if we get to live long enough? It is complex, brother. I commend you for stepping into this breach. And I want to just read a quick bio, Rich, to give the audience an idea or starting point of who you are. And then I want to go back and I want to dig into your story and talk about where you grew up, how you grew up, all the way up to what led you to the point that you are today. So here's Rich's bio in a nutshell. Rich Shaus.
Shaus, like house.
Shaus. Rich Shaus is a former United States Army field artillery captain, author, and nonprofit leader with more than 23 years of experience serving individuals and communities impacted by poverty. Raised near St. Louis, Missouri, he holds a BA in Missions and Bible from the Central Bible College, a BA in Rescue Missions from City Vision College, and a Master of Leadership from Northeastern State University. A distinguished Toastmaster and author of Hero Quest, Rich helps individuals identify the root causes of poverty and create pathways to lasting, meaningful change rather than short-term solutions. He's been married to his wife, Clara, for over 28 years and is a proud father of 3 children and a grandfather to 5.
5 granddaughters.
Yep. Granddaughters.
All girls.
Good night, man. Rich's work and worldview are deeply shaped by Micah 6:8, which is what we just discussed right here. And I'll read it again. To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. This is the principle that guides both his professional mission and his personal life. Let's get into your story, Rich, understanding who you are and what led you to this point. Growing up just outside of St. Louis, right?
Right.
Was it a rough area?
If you ever go up in the Arch, go to St. Louis, go up in the Arch, look east across the river, the Illinois side of that, and you see all this pollution,
Mm-hmm.
That's my hometown. That's where we came from. At that point, it was just steel factories. They've since added some other things, but steel mill. My dad was a hard-working crane operator. He worked double shifts, so 16 hours at a time, sometimes going for weeks at a time. Just that's all he would do, is he would do this work. But he had to take care of his family and provide for his family. And they were a good family. My mom and dad were faithful Catholic man and woman. I went to a Catholic school for 8 years. But I always I think my problem was I wanted to be with the cool kids, and you can't be cool and good at the same time, was kind of the way the world was. And so in order to be cool, I would cuss more than I probably should have. And I was mean to people just because, at least if I can be mean to them, at least I'm better than them. That was kind of my mindset growing up. I don't know why it was so important to me to be part of the cool kids. It was maybe a feeling of not accomplishing, not meaning anything. I always felt like I was important, but couldn't do anything important. I don't know, it was kind of hidden inside of me. So anyway, by the time I got to high school, I started drinking with the wrong crowd. That's what the cool kids were doing, so I just kind of joined them. It was always peer pressure for me. It wasn't a love of the taste. It just, hey, I want to be with those guys. They drink, so I got to do that. And they drink to vomiting and destroying lives, and I joined right in with them. And that was the life that I was living there for a season. Anyway, I'm going to college because that was what you're supposed to do. My mom made that very plain from early on. I didn't know at the time, but I had an aunt, Marilyn, who really talked to my mom. Her side of the family had, I don't know how many, they had 9 kids, but they all went to college. All of them, let me kind of back up a little bit. She had 9 kids, but only 2 of them lived to adulthood. So the remainder all went to college.
Good night. 9 kids and only 2 lived to adulthood?
Well, no, there's only 2 that didn't make it to adulthood. So there's 7 left that
gotcha.
That all went to college. They were all successful. And my mom said, if that's what it takes to be successful, that's what I want from my son. So she's like, well, you're going to have to study. If I got a B in a class, I was in trouble. I was not going anywhere. I was going to be sitting at home and having to do all those things. And so I was definitely going to go to college. But I was checking the box. I got to go to college, what mom says. I don't really care about what I'm learning here. I don't know really what I'm going to do with this. So I literally changed majors 6 times my first semester, another 6 times by the time I got to be a sophomore. And I still didn't really have a major by the time I got done with my junior year. And I said, you know what? This is a waste of my money. It's a waste of my time. And I'm not going to class anyway because I'm busy drinking all the time and skipping classes. I skipped finals. I don't know how you think you can pass a class and skip finals. But that's my mindset. Drinking and hanging out with my friends was more important than the classes. So I quit all that and decided to become a riverboat captain. I thought I'd be a writer. All right, and so I start off as a deckhand. I'm going to be a deckhand on the riverboat, and that's what I did for about a year. And I was going to be the next Mark Twain. I loved his writing. I thought, I could write like this. I'm just going to have to experience life here on the river. Mm-hmm. But I found out there addiction doesn't help you too much there either, because that's about the time I started adding in a little smoking of marijuana, trying some other drugs here and there as opportunity came out. The Doors movie came out about Jim Morrison and his addictions, and I thought, that's a cool life. I don't know why I thought that was a cool life, but I'm going to try to out Jim Morrison. So I was taking every drug I could find and thinking that was going to make my life better somehow. Well, I quit the riverboats because you can't keep doing that. They actually drug test you if you're working on the riverboats. It's dangerous to be high and working on the riverboats. But I was unemployed. I quit, and I don't know what I was going to do with my life. I was totally confused.
How old were you at this point?
I was, it's 21, so now I can legally drink.
Okay.
But I've been drinking and doing all that up to that point. So 21, I'm sitting there just trying to figure out, I tried to sell vacuum cleaners, Filter Queen vacuum cleaners.
Door to door?
Door to door.
That's old school right there, man.
Man, it was, I don't know how I convinced people. I convinced 2 people to buy a $1,100 vacuum cleaner. Like, how did the world did I pull that off?
Yeah.
Looking back. And I tried to sell dishes. I don't remember what the company was, but it was like pots and pans. It's kind of like the old school on a wagon, ching, 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 ching at the pots and pans. But even those things, you're not going to go very long. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try to get clean. I'm going to try to get sober. And a friend of mine came along and got me another job on a riverboat. This was a casino boat. And it was a pretty plum job. You mostly you're there for security and safety. And so we did drills on trying to help people who fell overboard, but it was kind of a military rigid almost. You're staying, you have a dress uniform on. I mean, they probably model it on the Coast Guard or the Navy sort of appearance. I'm hanging out with these folks who are all pretty well disciplined and trying to move forward in life. And I'm thinking, this is kind of cool. But most of the time we just sat and watched movies, waiting for some bad thing to happen. And as long as nothing bad happened, it was a pretty boring existence. But it was in this time that a friend of mine got married, and so we went out drinking the night before his wedding, and then we have the wedding, and then I go for a drive. I'm gonna actually go for a run because now I'm starting to get this discipline. I want to get back into my health because I've blown my health, so I'm gonna drive to the park. And I think, like, why would I drive to the park? I could have run there, and hindsight. But as I'm driving there, I was driving a Ford Festiva, and a Ford Festiva, I don't think you can still make them, but it's about the size of a coffin, not much bigger. And I hit a full-size pickup truck head on. And by that point I was sober, so there was no legal trouble with that particularly. I did get a ticket for failure to yield. I thought that was crazy, but I did some pretty bad damage to my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there in the hospital, and the officer comes in and puts a ticket on my chest as they're trying to fix my broken collarbone. That's not nice. Here I'm in pain, and you're just giving me a ticket. Well, to kind of come back a little bit is I had been starting to date this girl who had said, I'm not going to date you unless you go to church with me. And I don't believe in missionary dating. So if you're hearing this and you think that's not a good idea, but this girl did that, and I've actually benefited from it, so it sounds a little hypocritical to say don't do that. But it generally doesn't work out. In this case, though, she'd been taking me to church. I've been going to church just to please her, to please her parents, and I would argue with her after every service. This is what the preacher said. This is why that's wrong. Can't you see how blind you are? You are so foolish. You're so stupid. But the preacher was hitting on some things that were pretty amazing that he would have insight in my life. And I just assumed at the time that they were feeding him information. So, preach on this. This will get him. Preach on this. It'll get him. I've since known he had no clue. It was the Holy Spirit speaking to him and through him to hit me hard. Well, so after that accident, I was scared. I said, I need to get my life right. This has been a bad ride. I've not been able to beat my addictions. It's ruining my life. This car accident could have taken me out, and what do I have accomplished? I'm 21 and have done nothing with my life. So I go through the hospital. They put a little patch on there and say, okay, but the doctor, he's already out golfing for the weekend, so come back on Monday and we'll finish it up. And it's have this little, I don't know, like a binding on it, just so I don't move my shoulder too much. So I go to church that Sunday morning. I'm going to go to that altar. I don't know what that means. I've seen people do it at church, but I had no clue what going up there up front means. And I'm waiting for him to get this invitation. And that Sunday morning, that preacher did not give an invitation. And I was like, what is going on? I am so ready. I'm on fire. I can't believe he didn't do this.
Wow.
But I go to lunch with that girl and her family, and I'm just hanging out. And that evening, I go to the evening service. Back in those days, we did evening services. It seems to be kind of out of fashion now. They don't do that as much. But I had this evening service.
People are way too busy now for that.
Way too busy, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I went up. So he starts to give the altar call, and the words aren't even out of his mouth, and I'm up there. And I was like, man, this is what I need. And I'm crying up there. I'm bawling like a baby. I wasn't thinking I need to cry. It just happened all of a sudden. I'm just bawling, and I'm repenting of everything I could think of. And a young man came up. Ends up being the uncle of the girl I was dating, and he prayed with me personally. He opened up the scriptures to me and showed me some things to help me understand what in the world's going on. And then the preacher came over, and he lays his hand on me. And he realizes there's this padding on my shoulder, so he kind of touches it, and he pulls back like, oh no, I don't want to hurt him. He realized something was wrong with my shoulder. But then he kind of gently put it back on, and he prayed for me. And that changed my entire life from that point on. I wanted everything to do with Jesus. I went and bought my own Bible, which that was a much more exciting experience than I ever thought it would be. I just thought I'd go to a bookstore, and I just pick a Bible and go, but there's a whole row of them,
Mm-hmm.
different translations, different study Bibles. And I was like, man, this is a lot harder. And they were a lot more expensive than I thought they were going to be too. But so I picked one out, and it didn't matter how much it cost. It didn't matter. I was like, okay, Holy Spirit, show me which one. And I picked one out, and I lived with that Bible for many years as my best friend, just engaging with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is, on Monday, I go back into the doctor because they messed up, and the doctor was fine. I'm probably going to see the doctor because before it was just the nurses or whatever patching me up. But they couldn't find the x-rays, so they had to redo the x-rays. And he looks at the x-ray and goes, this thing ain't broke. But they were confident it was broke on Friday, but Monday it wasn't broke anymore. And all I can think back to that Sunday, that preacher prayed for that shoulder to get better. And look at this. God is very real. He can do this. He can bring a healing in this world. And so I want to be part of that. And I just went on with my life. I was going to church every opportunity I got. I started to go back to work, so I would miss a service here or there. But Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings, Sunday night, I try to go to other Bible studies. They didn't have a lot of extra studies, but I did everything I possibly could. My aunt, who was a Christian, she was really excited to hear this. She gave me Experiencing God. I don't know if you've ever done that study, but it's a powerful study, and I got so excited. And anyway, I'm just being filled with the Word of God, just popping into me all the time, and I'm getting pumped up over this. And one night, and I don't remember the first night, but I was sharing a room with my brother because I had to move back home, trying to get my life straight. And he says, "What was going on last night?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You woke up and said, 'You want me to do what?'" I don't remember doing that, but I'll take your word for it. I have no idea. So sorry I woke you up. Happened the second night. And this time he kept me up. And he goes, "Okay, what's going on?" And it was that night that I realized that dream, God had given me a dream to become a missionary. I want you to go in the mission field. I want you to lead the lost, to know who I am, to fill them with what I'm filling you with. I'm going to fill you. You just pass it on. I'm going to fill you, pass it on. And I'm thinking, I can't be a preacher. I look at those guys up there and the Bible teachers. That's not me. A missionary is going to be doing something different. So you'll be all right. But I want you to go be a missionary. And I dedicated my life to that moment. I was going to be a missionary. Looked at some Bible schools, ended up at Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. It doesn't exist anymore. So you can, they folded down several years after I left. It wasn't my fault. Let's throw that out there. But I was going to be a missions major, and I had this vision of traveling the world. Going to Peru was where I wanted to be a missionary at, and I got the opportunity to go to Peru one time and be a missionary there with them. It was so exciting, and I loved every minute of that. And I thought, this is what my life's going to be.
Let's go back to the dream that you were having, Rich, because I've never heard anybody share a testimony like that. So you unknowingly had a dream one night. You woke up saying, "You want me to do what?" And you weren't even conscious to realize that you were responding verbally to that dream while you were sleeping, but your brother heard you say that.
Right.
And then it happened again the second night, and he actually heard you say that, and he woke you up and kept you awake and asked you what was going on, and then it came to you what you were responding to. I mean, that's a wild experience, man.
It's just no evidence that he's real. It's so hard because we have to have our faith on things we can't see with our eyes. And this is just God proving himself. He healed my shoulder. He's going to give me this dream and this vision for what he wants me to do with my life.
And how long? So the healing in your shoulder, that was just within days after you received this gift of salvation, right?
Right. So 24 hours.
24 hours, yeah. And then the dream that you had, how long after?
That was about 2 months later. I got saved the last Sunday of August of that year, and then it was probably about October when I was having that dream.
I just think it's just an interesting study. Your testimony is. I can relate to it in a lot of ways. If I was to tell my testimony here, it's, I guess, not always, but it seems like the Lord does sometimes show up in some unique ways when we are early in our walk with him. Do you think there's something to that, man?
I think we need it more at the beginning because I'm so desperate for, I want more of that now.
Yeah.
I've been walking with him for over 30 years, and I wish he spoke to me sometimes the same way. But I think the thing is that so if we had a dark room and I light up a candle, it's going to be really bright in here. That candle is going to provide all this light. But if I put a candle in here right now with all these lights on, you probably don't even notice the light of the candle. And so I think out of our darkness, those little things seem huge. But yeah, I think that he's still lighting candles in our lives. We just don't notice it.
That's good, man. Yeah, that's good. The drinking thing, that stopped when you got that second job on the riverboat, right? The casino boat.
Yeah, I started quitting shortly after. I still was dabbling, but it was after salvation. I said, I'm not going back to that. That is never going to be part of what I'm going to do.
Gotcha. Did you do that like on your own? How did you work through that?
That's part of the challenge. God, the Holy Spirit got me free of this. And so when I started working with addiction years later with people, I thought, well, just let God heal you and be done. What's wrong with you? That's what he did with me. Why won't he do it with you? And so I was very insensitive to people coming out of addiction because it was so simple for me at that point. But I think God knew that he needed to do something miraculous to, again, keep my attention and keep me moving forward. And then seeing how it was destroying other people's lives. I have an aunt who literally drank herself to death, and that wasn't going to fit. That wouldn't have fixed me.
Yeah.
I have an uncle who used methamphetamine, and that was destroying his life. And I got to tell you, I was so proud of him. He beat it 10 years. Even surviving 10 years on meth is pretty amazing, even just surviving that long. But he makes it 10 years. Then he gets clean. He's clean for 3 years. But he didn't fix his body afterwards. He didn't go through some healing processes. And that's something I've learned since, that it's important we do damage in our addictions. And he didn't do that. So he got a common cold and it killed him. I thought, oh, now I get it. He did all his damage, with the meth in his lungs, and it did all his damage. He didn't heal all that. So something small can take you out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you received the gift of salvation, were you still close to your mother and father at that point in your life?
Yeah, I moved back in with them. I was a rotten kid. And my mom said I wasn't rotten until 13. She says I was pretty good up till 13, but
I can relate to you on that, brother. I think my mom would say the same thing about me.
But I had a temper. I would start a fight at a hair drop, and somebody look at me crossways, I'm going to fight them. So I was a rotten kid. So yeah, but they still loved me, and I got really close to them during that season.
What was her response, or what was their response to you receiving the gift of salvation? And because here, I'm assuming you were attending a Protestant church and they were devout Catholics. Was there any tension there? Were they happy for you? What did that look like, man?
They were completely confused.
Okay.
They were completely baffled. What is going on? I saw my son, who was a renegade. He's off the charts. He's not home most nights. He's causing trouble. Something just happened. My dad, I remember he was fixing breakfast, and I get up and he goes, "Where are you going? It's Sunday morning. I'm going to church." He's like almost dropped the pan because he couldn't believe that I would be going to church somewhere. And so there was some little tension there. But what helped is I have an aunt who went to Assembly of God Church. She had become a Christian at some point long before I came along. And she had been praying for me and my brother and sister and other family members. But she had been praying for me probably pretty intensely. And so my Aunt Lisa and Uncle Ron they were devoted. So my mom could not really come hard against me because her sister said, "You know what? This is the way it goes. This is good." The only problem that I had in that season was one of the gals goes to the church, got together with my mom, and said, "We got your son." And my mom was like, "Oh, he's part of a cult. They're taking him out." And so there was a lot of tension in that regard. She thought she needed to protect me and pull me out of that for a little bit.
Yeah.
But she also saw what was happening in my life. And she said, "Well, he's just growing up now. He's actually acting like an adult. He's no longer this childish kid anymore." So she thought it was just growing up, but she knew something was different. He goes, I'm not going to mess with it. Whatever's going in, he's going on the right track. I'm not going to mess with this.
So ultimately they supported you.
Ultimately, they supported it. Interesting story is my grandma lived about 3 blocks away. And so when I decided I'm going to become a missionary, I got to go somehow get to college. I didn't know that would be required. I thought I could just go to a couple of classes. The pastor would teach me some things, give me a ticket and said, go to, some other foreign world. I thought that's the way missionary thing worked, but no, he goes, you got to go to college. So he tells me that, and I got to get ready to go to college. So how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to enlist in the Army. I'm going to become, and what can I do in the Army? Because shooting people probably isn't a good missionary tactic. So what do I do? So I'm a medic. I can learn all these medicals. The government will pay me to learn medical skills. I will go out on the mission field. I will patch people up and share the gospel at the same time. That was my great vision for this. So I go to visit my grandma who's 3 blocks away, and she's like interrogating me, and she goes, so your mom was upset about you becoming a Pentecostal preacher, but now she's really concerned because you're going to go become a soldier and get shot at. And so I kind of threw her off the Pentecostal preacher thing by going to become a soldier.
Yeah. She's
totally distracted. She goes, maybe not so bad he's going to become a preacher. I'll be all right with that. So she was always concerned. My mom's, she's always just wanted to protect. That's always been her heart. She was my grandfather, who eventually becomes a Christian, though, but in her childhood he was an alcoholic and a womanizer and a lot of very negative things. But she felt she needed to protect her siblings. And then when she got married, her children, she's just going to protect. And so that was the biggest challenge with my mom, was trying to protect me in that season.
Yeah. You talked about your grandfather being an alcoholic. It makes me wonder what's your perspective on addiction, particularly how much of it is genetic versus environment and personality, if that makes sense.
Well, one of the things Jesus deals with is they always try to put him in an either-or situation, either stone the woman or don't stone the woman. Yeah. And I think addictions can fall in that same category. There are some environmental factors that fit in. Alcohol was in my house, so it was easy for me to sample and try things out. It seemed normal because my family would have parties. We were a German family, so there's beer at every party. And that was kind of normal. So it was very normalized. But it also, it goes deeper than all that. I got identity from my addiction. And I go so far as saying that addiction is pretty much like idol worship. That becomes your idol. That's your focus. That's everything in your life. And so when I read the scriptures, I see anything about idol worship, I think, oh, that's like addiction. And so when I'm interacting with people, I use that as a reference.
Yep.
But my grandfather had to do some prison time before he got clean. So yeah, I didn't want to have to go to that extreme. So I always praise God for that. And interestingly enough, when he got out, him and I did jail ministry together for several years.
Wow, man.
And I remember one of my first dates with my wife was going to jail. Like, we were going to go to jail, sing Christmas carols. That's what we did, sing Christmas carols with these guys in jail. And there was a half-naked guy dancing to Jingle Bell Rock or something. I don't remember what song we were singing, but he was dancing, and she's like, I'm with you. And this is what I'm going to experience in my life. So yeah, it was an interesting time.
Let's dig into your time in the Army. So you're now at the point you have this calling on your life to be a missionary. That's clear to you. That was delivered to you through this dream, and you're confident that this is the direction you need to go. And you basically are deciding to join the Army to supplement or prepare you for the mission field. So what did you ultimately end up doing in the Army? Did you pursue the medic path? How did you?
Well, I was a medic, and I really did it for the money. The recruiters come and say, we're going to pay for your college. We're going to give you all this money, and you're going to pay for you to do the reserve duty all through your college. You're going to have this money coming in, and I don't know. And when you're a stupid kid, that sounds like a mint. Like, this is gold. So that's what I really said. But I really realized, looking back, I needed the discipline. The boot camp experience was so pivotal for my life because I was so undisciplined, unorganized. I couldn't have done college. that's part of the reason I failed the first time, is I didn't have any discipline to show up at classes, to do the right things, and to be polite to teachers and have respect for my elders. And all that was not part of that. So I had the discipline of that. And I get back to college, and none of my college friends have any discipline. And I'm thinking, wow, I can do well at this. And I actually did really well. But I also learned that I loved the Army. I was just going to do reserve time. I thought, this is just my temporary. It's going to pay for me to go to college. I want to do more of this. And so I looked into ROTC. My college didn't have ROTC, but a local college did. And I went over and talked to them. They say, oh yeah, you can go to your college and do ROTC here. You'll have to take the ROTC courses. There's one every semester. And then there's also, you have to take military history, because my school didn't offer military history. It's a Bible college. I just didn't think to cover that. But you can do that. And so that's what I did. And then interestingly enough, that first year, 3 of us were doing that from my same school. What are the odds that the school has never had anybody do ROTC, but the year I do it, there's 3 of us.
I'll be darned.
But neither one of those other 2 made it. They both dropped out for different reasons. So I decided to do ROTC, and that's where I met one of my great mentors. He retires a lieutenant colonel, Tulak. He was just phenomenal on the discipline. He taught me how to plan, and I didn't realize how important planning was with my life, but he struck something in my heart, and I could do the military operations order like nobody's business because of that man. I would do an op order, he said, nope, not right, and he'd make me do it again. And I do it, and I thought it was brilliant and great. Nope, not right, go do it again. And he just pushed hard, and I became a master at the operations order. So I got an operations order for myself that I operate off of, and I do it for my organization, and I do that. So I learned that. And then when you do a ROTC, they're gonna pick your branch for you. You put in your request. These are my top 6. Men have to put in their top one of your top 3 have got to be combat arms, and my combat arms at the top was field artillery, and so they picked me for field artillery. I think back and think I probably should have put infantry first, because that's more my pace. Artillery moves fast. It's very you have to think a whole lot. It was very interesting to me. The mathematics and the dynamics of some of that, but in hindsight, I probably should put infantry first. But anyway, the Army, in their wisdom, put me in artillery. And by the same time, I got married and go overseas. They sent me to Germany. That was a great experience. It's one of the things that the recruiter probably had right, is you get to see the world. Mm-hmm. And I loved living in Germany. My family, my grandparents were immigrants from Germany, so I got to see what they experienced growing up. My great grandfather was from from Hamburg, and my great grandmother from Frankfurt. And so the family joke was always a hamburger married a Frankfurter, and then the rest of the family kind of comes out of that. And anyway, so I got to see that and experience that, and I also got to see the world through different eyes. Before I was just a Midwest boy, and I got to see the world through the eyes of Midwest people. But now I'm seeing how the Germans see it. And then we traveled to Czech Republic. I got to see. I don't know if you had the chance to see Czech Republic, but it's an old school communist look and feel. The whole place. Beautiful cities in between. Karlovy Vary and some other little cities are pretty awesome. But I got to see it through their eyes, and it changed my whole perspective. I also, where I had been just doing this Pentecostal school, now I'm going to the Army Protestant service, and I'm interacting with all these great men and women who believe a little different than I do. And my Bible college, we actually would try to send people down to the Baptist college trying to save people. That was the kind of craziness that was going on. I think it's still kind of going on. Oh, if you're not my brand, you must not be saved, and you don't know the Word of God because you go to that church.
Yeah.
And but I learned, these guys are awesome. They love Jesus with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I too want to know Jesus the way they do. And so we fed off each other. Iron was sharpening iron through that entire time, but we're in Europe. I got deployed to Kosovo for 7.5 months. My daughter had been born. She was 1 year old when I left, and so she was about 2 when I got back. I was almost a year apart.
Man.
And kids do a lot. I know you just had your first. They change so much, and when you miss that, I remember somebody sent a video and included my daughter, and I didn't recognize her in that video.
That would be brutal, man.
I was like, oh. And I got home, and she didn't know who I was. She recognized, I think I should know this guy. It was like this almost, I should know, but I can't place him. I don't know where he's at.
Wow.
And it was about 6 hours there where she's kind of staring. And she'd leave and go play, and then she'd come back and stare at me some more. And then, boom, she got it. It's like, I can't do this again.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided it was time to get out.
Yeah.
It was just too heartbreaking. But I was committed. I was going to do it the rest of my time. But again, this is where God knows better than we do, because my goal was to get it done, go. And when God gives something in my mind, I want to do it immediately. But God says sometimes, you know what, I'm just going to give you the idea. It needs to simmer there for a little bit. It needs to do some baking. And I was ready to go right away, but God knew I needed some more skills.
Yep.
So he makes me a staff officer, and I hated the idea of being a staff officer. I wanted to be with the troops. But they said, well, you're getting out, so no, you don't need troop time, so let's put you in this staff job for the next year. And I was a plans officer, coming back to that training that I got from Lieutenant Colonel Tulag. He was a major when I knew him, but Lieutenant Colonel when he got out. And I put that all into action, and I was phenomenal. I loved every minute of that job. I'm doing the plans. I'm making agreements with the Germans for training. Who go on their ground and do some training. We did some cross training with a German tank unit, and they got the Panzers coming out. It's like, man, this is pretty cool stuff. And I was I put briefings together for my boss to take to General Abizaid, which ended up leading in the Desert Storm, the second one. And so some cool things were going on, and I was really loving it. But I knew God had called me out. But I was learning these skills on Excel, on PowerPoint, on Word, and learning all these skills throughout this time, and how to organize and plan and lead men indirectly. I've been a leader of direct. That's somewhat easy compared to this indirect. I got to lead somebody to lead somebody. That seemed a lot harder to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was learning all those skills over the course of that year. And by the time I was ready to get out, and it took a year for me to fulfill my commitments, for the Army to finally say it out, I'm finally there, and they send me to the out processing briefing. And it's a 2-day ordeal of going to classes and how you're going to reintegrate into civil society, and how all the Army is going to offer after you're out. And it's 2 days. Well, day one was September 11th of 2001.
No kidding, man.
So I'm halfway through this, and at that day we didn't know really fully what happened. I just know they stopped and said, "Okay, a plane has hit the towers, so head on back, and we'll finish training tomorrow." And we did come back the next day, but by that point we knew what was happening, and we were ramping up. Everybody's getting excited, and all of a sudden, God, do you really want me out? I mean, I'm starting to enjoy my time in the Army.
That's got to be tough, man. Yeah.
I'm looking outside my window, and the Germans have flowers piled up at our gate. They have sympathy for us. And I'm with these soldiers, and we're like, this is what we're here for. We're here to defend our country, and we've been attacked, and I'm not going to leave. I love this country, and I'm going to defend it with everything in me, but I had to keep coming back to God. He said, this was easy a week ago. Yeah, I'm ready to leave. I'm frustrated. I'm tired, but I'm learning stuff. I appreciate God giving me this year, but now, and he was very clear. No, you need to finish the out processing. You need to not try to reverse it. It would have been easy to reverse it at that point. It would have been easy to go. Of course, yeah. I changed my mind. I want to stay. Send me back to Lawton, Oklahoma, so I can get my captain, next level captain's training. So that way you can put me in command. I'm ready. But God said, no, I want you to stay. I want you to go back. I got a plan for you. And at that point in my life, my grandparents-in-law were living on their own, but they were elderly and couldn't really take good care of themselves. So I thought, I'm going to go there, and we're just going to check in on them. I'll get a job, hopefully pastoring a church someplace. Because I thought, again, my brain keeps coming back. That's ministry. It's only if you're a pastor. That's the only way to be a minister. And so I'm going to go to Washington State where they lived, and I'm just going to help them out. And so the Army does all their organization, ships all my stuff to go that direction. But my in-laws decided to move in close to them before I got there. So I wasn't needed to do that job anymore. Man, God, you got me all the way over here in Washington State. I only know my in-laws, and I know these, some aunts and uncles. I know a few people. What am I doing here? And I started applying for jobs. And I got rejected for 3 months, every single job I applied for. I am a college graduate at this point. I have served my country. But I got to tell you, Chad, what really broke my heart? I applied for a mall cop and got turned down. I am a defender of this country, and I can't even defend a mall? What is wrong with me? And it all became about me. It was like, I am messed up. And then I started looking around saying, well, I was Captain Shaus. When I became Captain Shaus, my coordination with the German army got easy. Lieutenant Shaus couldn't do a lot of that. But Captain Shaus, when that rank was like, oh, that was my identity. And I was devastated. Plain old Rich, he can't do nothing.
Yeah.
He's just a failure. And I was crying on my couch because I kept getting rejected for jobs. But this mission was looking for a job. I got the paper every day. Back in the day, we didn't have the internet. It was just kind of coming on. And so there's like monster.com and hot jobs. And I remember it's like 3 or 4 sites. And I would go on those, apply for everything on there. So 100 jobs a week I was applying for. But one was in the paper, and it was for a Union Gospel Mission in Spokane, Washington. I said, well, I can do that. I can do that temporary. I can pay the bills until I get a real job as a pastor, do real ministry. And I go to put in my application, and the lady at the desk says, well, you can put in your application, but that's a women's shelter. What do you think? You can't do that. Well, man, I blew it again. I'm not reading it. I'm not understanding. I can't work with women. That's crazy. That's devastating. But it turns out that God had already been working on their staff to say, we need a man here. Because these women have been hurt by men their entire life. And they need a man to show them that he can respect them, he can love them, he can care for them, and it cannot be sexual. And that was their mindset. So they started interviewing me. They actually interviewed me for 3 more months. I got a job as a bus plaza security guard, trying to pay some bills. What's interesting, I went through all the training. I never actually did a night shift, any kind of shift at that job, because God gave me this other job working with those women. And that was the weird part, is that I thought, well, ministry is going to be this pastoring job. But I fell in love with these homeless women and their children. And I'm not saying anything sexual or anything romantic. It was this incredible love. Like they are so hungry for God's word. They want to know, how does this apply to my everyday life? How do I apply this? And how do I overcome this hurt, this pain, this trauma from my past? And the pastors didn't know how to address that trauma in their life. But here I'm studying God's word, and I'm interacting with them. So I go back and I'm studying God's word. What does he say about this trauma? And then I bring it back to them. And it became a passion for me to do that. And God did give me my prayer. He did give me an opportunity to pastor, and I was pastoring simultaneously. It was a small church, so they couldn't pay me enough. So I'm working at the shelter and doing the pastoring job. And I did that for about 4 years. But partway through that, I had this realization that I like these people at the shelter more than I like the church folks. They're so focused, and they just want to come to church, and they're going to hear preaching. They're going to sing a few songs, and they're not going to be any different. When I share that same word of God with these women, they're going to be different.
Yeah, because they recognize they have a great need. I imagine in the place that they're in life, they recognize their need, and that produces that hunger for the Word of God. I want to back up a little bit, Rich, and I want to talk about that moment when you had basically 1 day left in the Army, and it was 9/11, and you were feeling that tension in you about, well, what do I do here? Like, I'm on my way out, but my country's been attacked. I want to serve my country. This is an opportunity to actually do that. It's not going to be peacetime. We're going to war. You have that realization, and there's this tension. And you stated that the Lord was very clear in that moment. And I want to understand what that really looked like. And I want to understand that because I think that there are a lot of people listening who are at some point in their life where they feel some tension around what it is they're supposed to do. Maybe one way makes the most sense, and they feel passion and toward that direction, but at the same time the Lord's pulling them another way and they don't know what to do. So what did that really look like for you, man? That clarity that you received during that kind of pivotal moment? Because if you would have went the other direction and you would have re-enlisted, your story would be totally different than the story that you're telling here today.
It comes back to I had started to establish this discipline where every morning I would pray, I would read God's word, and it's such a habit that even today at 4:30 every morning I've been praying for years, and my daughter knows this. So when she would wake up with her babies, and it's 4:30 in the morning, she's like, "Well, it's gonna be okay because Dad's praying for us right now." She just knew that, even though she wasn't in the room, she was living on her own for a while. She's in North Carolina now; she's in Tulsa. She goes, "Well, Dad's praying. We're going to be all right." Man. I know baby's up cranky right now. And so that discipline was engaging in having intimate relationship with God and listening to what he says. And he used a lot of different phrases and different words. He's like, look at those great missionaries. They went out on faith. I mean, I was a missions major, so all these stories started coming into my mind, reminding me. Some of these missionaries would go to these places. I remember one of the missionaries, he landed on an island. I can't remember which island it was, but they got eaten. Those missionaries got eaten when they landed. I mean, they preached the word of God, but I ended up in class with a descendant of the island nation. And I remember looking at him going, are you okay to have in my class? Are you looking at me as like dinner?
Yeah, that's wild, man.
But he goes, oh, no, we don't do that anymore. I was pretty happy to hear that. But it was that all the training and everything he had put into me started to do that. And then I would look at, this is the more human level, where I looked at my daughter, who at that point was almost 3 years old. I had a newborn son, and I'm looking at those two and think, what can I do with their life? If I go back out and I do this fighting, yeah, I want to do that. That's my flesh wants to go out and do that. But what's going to be their future if I do this? And he revealed that, well, their future's going to be a little rough. And this is the other piece that I think people need to, when they get into these tight situations, and it's happened to me a couple different times, but in this situation, he said, I'm going to bless you if you stay in. I'm going to take care of you. You can still go. If you really want to do this, I'm going to be with you. I'm not going to forsake you. I've loved you from before you were born, before your parents even knew each other. I loved you and knew you, and I'm going to take care of you. But if you want a better life, follow me.
Wow, man.
And I was like, and that's what hit me. It's like, okay, I can do this, but this is the route I'm going to take. And that was really, the other thing that made it hard is I didn't have a job waiting for me in the States. This was early internet era, so I couldn't apply. I applied for 3 jobs, but there's some quack from Germany sending me an email.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hire this guy from Germany.
Yeah, so you're having to leave something that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
For something that's completely unknown.
And then trying to explain that to my Catholic family, they were just like bewildered, but also I was like proud. I'm stepping out by faith. This is what stepping out by faith looks like. And it's easy to say, but then hard to experience. So when I was getting rejected, that's why that was so painful. As I just told my family, God is sending me to Washington State. He's going to take care of me. Mm-hmm. And when I wasn't getting a job, I was like, okay, I blew it. Did I not hear from you? Am I completely failing? But again, he's in charge. And I've been thinking that I've been meditating this week on Paul, and one of his phrases, he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And those are almost his last words in his life. And I get it. Because when I stepped out and wasn't getting a job, I was like, I am not hearing from God. There is no God. I mean, you start to have these strong doubts. And I imagine Paul, as he's in prison, he's thinking, man, what am I doing? I've been following this Jesus guy, and this is what it gets me?
Yeah.
I could have been a Sadducee doing my thing. I'm shipwrecked. He saves all these people who are, he keeps them from killing the prisoners, and they still kept him in prison. You think that would be right to get free? So his faith had to be struggling. And so I took the step God told me to do. My faith was struggled, but I learned from God on that I'm going to take care of you. I know you got a baby who goes through a lot of diapers, and he eats a ton, and you got this 3-year-old who's rambunctious, and you're going to have to somehow have a job, take care of these kids. But I got you. Rich. Don't you stress.
And when you hear from the Lord like that, particularly in that pivotal moment, does that Does that happen for you while you're in prayer? Is it quiet time that you have? Is it being revealed to you through the reading of the Word? I mean, what's most common? Like, what's that experience like?
Occasionally, it'll include those moments. That's just part of my day. It's going to happen. Before I came over to visit with you today, I was reading in Ezekiel. I'm reading through. I read through the Bible every year, and I've averaged one a year for my whole life. I'm almost 55 years old. I read through over 55 times, and so I read it, and it's engaging with me. And then he's bringing things to mind throughout the day. I have a time of prayer. I use the Pause app. John Eldridge has a great little Pause app, and I enjoy partaking in that. There's John Bevere has a Messenger X, and I partake in some teaching there. There's the Bible app, so I'm listening to actual scripture in addition to whatever I'm reading. And so all that is kind of in my core being. And then as I walk through the day, he'll say, oh, this, and this. For example, when I was feeling like called to be a missionary the first time, 21 Jump Street. I mean, people may not remember that show, the original show, but they had a whole show about them being missionaries one time. They were trying to rescue some missionaries, so he kind of went out and went with these missionaries. That's the same time God was talking to me about being a missionary.
So you're paying attention to these things because you are engaged with the Lord in prayer and through His Word, and so you're paying attention to these things that if you weren't engaged in prayer and in the Word and in meditating on the Word, you probably would just skip right past them and not even notice.
It would be the candle in the bright room.
That's right. Yeah.
But because of that, I can look and see, oh, there's a candle there.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to pay attention to that. Moses, paying attention to the burning bush.
I love also that, you have the courage to share the part of your testimony in that season that you were in there in Washington State when you were applying for hundreds of jobs and, you're not finding anything and people are turning you down for jobs that you should have, like you were way overqualified for. And I love that you have the courage to share that part of your testimony, that there are seasons in our lives, even as men and women of faith, and where we feel distant from the Lord. I mean, I think people need to hear that because that's the reality of being a Christian.
Definitely. Mother Teresa felt it. Other great mystics of history have felt that. They call it the dark night of the soul. And it's very real, but we got to stay in it. I mean, I know you're a runner, and every run I've ever done, I did ultra distance for a little bit. I'm nowhere near your level. For my 40th birthday, I ran 40 miles.
That's dang good, bro.
But I did it because I was 40, and at 50, I did a 50-mile road march. So I love the endurance piece.
Awesome.
But there's a point in every bit of training I want to quit. There's never been a training thing I thought, but when I push through that moment, the better is always on the other side of that. I want to quit this run at 3 miles. When I do 5, it's like, I can do another 5.
Yep.
And it's like a new energy when I beat through that dark night of that run, of that physical thing. It's the same thing in the spiritual world. When I push through that darkness, the other side is so much more brilliant and fantastic. It's no longer just one candle, it's a dozen candles.
Man. Yeah, there's definitely a purpose to it. When you are experiencing a season where the Lord feels distant and there seems to be no direction, maybe you're not hearing from Him. There's confusion, there's anxiety, there's sometimes anger, there's doubt. What are the important things that you practice to move through that season? Because those seasons could essentially paralyze you. So moving through that, what do you practice to move through that?
So I have a spot in my house, kind of set up a little bit like the setup here, and I have an empty chair, and that's where Jesus sits. And so I talk with Him, and that's part of my everyday routine. I do that whether I feel like it or not.
Mm.
And so every morning, that's what I'm doing. 4:30 in the morning, that's what I'm doing. I'm sitting in this chair, Jesus is sitting over there, and I'm going to talk with Him. And I'm going to say, I'm mad about this. I am confused. I am baffled. And I'm not hearing from you. What in the world is going on? And I get irate with Jesus. And I think as Christians, we get a little soft, like he can't handle that. The dude survived the cross. Most people don't make it through the whipping, much less the carrying of the cross and hanging on there. He shouldn't have made it. Most people don't. He can handle my little bit of frustration and anger. And what are you doing? You told me I should do this, and it's not going the way it should. Most of the time he smiles and says, all right, that'll do. The pig, Wilbur the pig. I can't remember what that movie was, but that'll do, pig. And he does the right thing. And he's kind of like says that to me.
Yeah.
That'll do. I understand you're mad. I understand you're frustrated. Just don't quit. Just don't quit.
I love that you said, I do that whether I feel like it or not. So I think that's critical, because during those seasons that we go through where we feel the Lord is distant, our feelings is what, if we listen to our feelings and we obey our feelings, that is what will paralyze us in those seasons. And so having the discipline to practice that time in prayer, or to read the word. I mean, in those seasons you read the word, and because I've been there too before, and it's like, it's almost like you read it and you're just like, well, I'm not getting anything out of this. Like, well, I don't even necessarily know how what I just read is supposed to apply to me. I mean, you're going to experience that in those seasons, but nonetheless, you read the word. You don't listen to your feelings. You don't allow your emotions to lead you in those seasons. I just think that's critical for other Christians to understand that, and especially new Christians that haven't experienced those seasons. I think they should anticipate the fact that they're coming, and they're coming because there's a purpose in them to sanctify you. And don't allow your feelings to paralyze you in those times.
And just because I'm not getting anything out of it, it's something's going into me.
Yes.
And it's planting seeds in there that may come to fruition. I remember having this really, before we got deployed to Kosovo, they took all the lieutenants out and they did this torture season. So like 3 days of going through the woods and no food and extreme training, and it's bitter and cold. And I was already angry and bitter because I had expected it was my grandparents' 50th anniversary and my in-laws' 50th anniversary. And I lost my opportunity to go see them because they ruined this silly training that they forced me on. I'm bitter and angry. And about 3 a.m. on one of the days, all of a sudden, scripture's just popping out of my mouth. I thought, where did that come from? I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't meditating on it. It just started popping out. And God got me through that training time and pushed me through my bitterness. Really killing my bitterness was kind of pretty important. But I didn't, when I originally read that scripture, it wasn't doing anything in that moment.
Yeah.
But it was needed on that.
But it's getting in you. Yeah.
In you.
Yeah, that's good stuff, brother. So back to your story, you're at a point now where you had the realization that you have a love and a passion for these women that you're serving, even more so than the people who are part of the congregation that you're pastoring there. And so I'm assuming that's another point where you have to make a pivotal decision about what are you going to do? What direction are you going to go?
That's when I went to my boss. I was like the night security, and then I did some daytime, but I was mostly just hanging out with the ladies and just encouraging them. And that's what I was doing. But I wanted to become I wanted my boss's job. And so I went to her and said, what do I got to know and learn in order to have your job? And that was terrifying. That was actually scarier than any of my deployments. When I was, nothing like what they experience now, but Kosovo, when I first got there was somebody just raining mortars in once in a while, and it was indiscriminate where they hit. And I was uncomfortable with that. I was terrified going and working with these women. And I was even more terrified to go to my boss and say, you know what? I'd like to have your job. I was waiting for her just to say, well, that's fine. You're fired. But instead she said, you know what? I need to coach you and train you. And she started mentoring me. I said, this is what you need to know if you're going to be a director of a nonprofit. This is what you're going to need to know if you're going to do this long term. This is how you speak with donors. This is how you speak with the community, the public at large, other supporters. This is how you have to make decisions with these women, because it's really easy for me to get focused on one individual woman or one individual person, but I got to look at how that person impacts everybody else around them. That's what the leader has to do. It didn't affect me. I want this woman to stay. I want her to stay in the shelter, but this one's saying, oh, but when she misbehaves, look at all these people it's hurting. So she mentored me on that. And then there came a point where we became more of a program where we were screening out who we were going to serve at that shelter. We said we only want the people who really want life change, and we would have this whole interview process, and we'd bring them in, and we would have a full house load of people who really want a life change, and that was beautiful. But we were also rejecting about triple that, and nobody on staff. We would all sit around and we said, you know what? We really like the way this is going. We're really making a long-term impact for these ladies, but what about those other 150 or so a month that we're not serving? And it came down to, we need another shelter. We need one that's going to take these folks in and help them out. And they picked a location, red light district. Let me describe this place to you. It's an old motel. They have an old motel that make a U, and we put a fence up in front of it. My neighbors were literally Hell's Angels Clubhouse. Outside my office window when I took that job over there, I could see Hell's Angels Clubhouse right there. The other side was a hardcore liquor store. They didn't sell beer. They only sold the hardest of liquors you could sell. Across the street was a brothel that the police were okay with because they were getting good drug dealer information from. And I'm going to serve women at this place. I'm like, this is a bad place. And then behind me were 2 drug houses. They bought that place.
Good night, man.
And they said, Rich, we'd like you to run this. So now I'm equivalent with my boss. I'm at the same level. I'm running a shelter. She's running a shelter. And now, because she mentored me, I was prepared to step into that world. And we would serve 130 women and children every single night in 14 rooms of that motel. And it was so exciting that I could not watch movies because every movie ever made was boring at that point. Because I'm dealing with people escaping gangs, and we actually rescued a human trafficking victim one season. And I still remember we were hiding her out in a special room. I didn't want anybody to know she was there, so we had her special room. But I didn't want her to be lonely, so I brought my son over, and he was probably 6 or 7. He played Candyland with her. And he's like, he didn't know that she was trafficking and been trafficked, and he knew nothing about that world. She was laughing, and he was laughing. They had a good time. My son was able to minister to her. He didn't even know he was ministering to her.
Wow, man.
But that's the sort of world I was in. And after that got stable, I thought I'd be content just running the shelter. I thought, I'm a shelter director, and I'm helping 120-something, 130 women a night, and I'm in a rough neighborhood. I've made it. I have succeeded. But God put this desire in me for more. What's more? What else is out there? And that's when I went to my new boss and said, I'd like to have your job. And he's the executive director. He's running those 2 shelters, a men's shelter doing 150 guys a night. He had just started another shelter in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, so across the state line. He's added since then, but he's leading all this. And I said, he's in his 60s. He's probably going to retire pretty soon, and I'd like to have his job. So I'm going to get with him right now. And he mentored me for 7 years. And again, he's teaching me fundraising, book, accounting, basic accounting, marketing, how to, again, community, all those things at a deeper, higher level. And the whole reason we had come to Washington was because my grandfather-in-law was there. My in-laws were there, but they passed away. So now I'm not required to stay in Washington, where there was nothing holding me in Washington. And I'm thinking, if this guy isn't going to retire, I need to take a job. I'm ready to be an executive director. So I applied at a job in California, interviewed for that job. They offered me more than I asked for. They said, well, how much would we have to pay you to come here? And I told them a number, and they said, okay, great. We're going to pay you about $20,000 a year more than that.
Wow.
But my wife and my wife's name's Kara, and we spent this time praying over that pretty distinctly. And there were some red flags with the organization as a whole. They were concerning, but I was willing to ignore it because I was so focused in on this is the job I want. This is what I want. But God kept bringing those red flags. He wouldn't let me shake off those red flags. And that director, I turned down the job. And it was the hardest reply. I didn't want to make that call because This was my dream. This is my hope. I'm never going to get another opportunity like this. That's kind of what your brain's at. And so I said, I'm sorry. I've been praying about it, and I don't think God wants me to go there. I hate playing the God card, like, oh, it's God saying this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really what it was. I couldn't. There was no other definition. It's, I want this.
No other way to explain it. Yeah.
But God doesn't want me to go. So I'm going to say, sorry, I can't do it. And that guy stayed for another 10 years or something. So he wasn't going to leave. The executive director wasn't ready to leave. So it would have been a painful experience for me going there.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I realized I didn't know enough. I needed more mentoring from my boss. And he mentored me a whole lot more, but he still wasn't ready to retire. And he's healthy. And it used to be that guys would retire at 65. But he was still cranking out at 75. So, I'm never going to step into that job. So I started looking elsewhere. And I had an offer to go to Salem, Oregon, which that was a turnkey. It was already set up, already established, ready to go. And all I had to do was say yes, go in, buy a house, and I'd have my dream. And it was a capital city of a state. And that way I have influence to the state level, really easy. Don't have to drive too far. It's going to be great. But God said, no, I got something different for you. So I also I'm interviewing at Salem, but also interviewing in Muskogee, Oklahoma. So I became an Okie from Muskogee because God showed me this place. He goes, it's a nobody even knows it exists. In the 1990s, there had been an embezzlement scheme with this mission. And so everybody, the new director said, the best way to get past this is to go quiet, go silent. Don't let anybody know you exist. And they'll forget about the embezzlement thing. And then we can come back online and get famous and get the help needed, the donors to come in and let everybody know we exist again so they can start funding us and take care of the homeless. Because they don't take government funding. Still don't take government funding. But they said, but God said, I designed you to take this hard place that they got a plan for you to move to a new location. But you're going to have to raise $1.6 million to make this move. I've never had to do the fundraising side. I've been mentored and coached how to do this. I'm coming to a community that doesn't even know we exist. I'm going to have to find $1.6 million without going to government for this.
That's a lot of money to raise, man.
I thought, I can't do that. But God said, yes, you can. And this is what you're going to do. And I sat my family down and said, okay, I think God wants us to do this. It was my wedding anniversary, so it was a perfect excuse for me to go away without anybody knowing I was interviewing for another job. So the live interview was going to be on my anniversary. So we're going on an anniversary trip to Muskogee, Oklahoma, kids. Like they weren't going to pick up on that kind of craziness. Who goes to Muskogee, Oklahoma for an anniversary trip,
Yeah.
At that point, they'd never heard of it. So it's even less to them. Like, so middle of Oklahoma, Dad, what? Well, my kids are smart, so they had that figured out. So we go to this interview, and I loved everything in that city. I loved the people. Just like I fell in love with those homeless women, I fell in love with the whole community. And I was on fire for it. They sent me their strategic plan. They had done a beautiful strategic plan, and I'm looking at that going, well, this is what I would do. This is how I fulfill that strategic. This is the action steps to all the strategic plan. And I had marked it all up with red ink and all the action I was going to take to base all this. And in the whole interview, I'm bringing this up, and they're like, you're our guy. So we moved there. My wife actually got food poisoning during the interview process, which made it an interesting interview. So she had to step out for most of that interview.
Good night, man.
So again, it's, I would have thought everything would go smooth if God really wants me here. So why is she getting sick?
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. I don't want to get distracted by these other little things because she was still willing to come. If she said after food poisoning, no, God definitely said not, I would have had to take that into consideration because we're partners. We're joint heirs of this work that we're doing. I'm going to take this job, but it's us doing this job. It's not just me. Our spouses get sucked into our nonsense. So we do this. We take the job, and I actually go talk to. First thing I do is I'm going to meet with all the pastors. So I have my assistant start making phone calls. I'm going to visit all these pastors, and these pastors kept bringing up, "Well, aren't you the place with the embezzlement?" Like, wait, it's 2015. That was 1992. It was 3 directors ago.
Good night, man.
Their memory had not gone away. They thought the memory would go away, but these are pastors saying, "We're not going to forgive what happened, 20 years ago."
Mm-hmm.
I think, how in the world am I going to do this? But I just kept at it. I wasn't going to quit. And I kept nugging at it, finding different people. I put in requests to meet with different people. Found this family that was willing to fund $500,000 of that. I said, okay, that's a good start. And then I found a foundation, a city foundation that was willing to give $500,000 of that. And so that got us to the $1 million. And then I just had to find another $600,000, which that wasn't necessarily easy either. But once you got $1 million, other people say, you know what, if there's $1 million already in it, I'm willing to put my 2 cents in, and I'm willing to do that. So that came together, and we were able to move to this new location.
So this is the second time in your life that you chose something that was sure, which was the other option that you had that was, you said it was turnkey. Yeah. You could have just went there, plugged right in, got to rocking and rolling, and you turned that down to go and sort out a mess where there's zero certainty because you need a $1.6 million to even get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, even when I took the job, they said, well, this is your salary, but you're going to have to go out and fundraise to make sure you get paid.
Good night, Rich. I have a question for you right now before we kind of roll into unpacking the Gospel Rescue Mission, which is what we're talking about. When you were really getting started in this leadership role and you had your own shelter in that red light district and you were serving, you said 120, 130 women, every night they were in some really rough situations. And does, you described it as something that energizes you essentially. Well, I look at it from my perspective and I'm like, how does that not drain you? Like, was it ever, or is it ever draining, like emotionally for you, because you're pouring so much in to other people who are experiencing probably the lowest lows that you could imagine as a human being. And you're pouring so much into them. But at the same time, you also have to have enough left for your family, your children, and then hopefully a little bit left over for yourself to go out and do something you enjoy. So do you ever feel that? Or is this serving other people always something that's just filling you up and energizing you?
Well, first of all, I am pouring into them, but they also are pouring into me. They're teaching me and showing me things. Just because they're homeless, some of these are really smart, brilliant people.
Of course.
And they're teaching me things, and they're asking outlandish questions about the scripture that I never even pondered, and now I can dig into the scripture a little bit more that I never would have looked in that way. That's why I like diverse Bible studies, because if I just do Assembly of God or just Baptist Bible studies, I'm kind of pigeonholed. There's not this crazy outlandish, look at this scripture. What does this scripture say? What does that really mean? How do I apply that in my life? So they're feeding into me. Mm-hmm. But also, you mentioned the family piece. It was about this time I started studying a man by the name of William Wilberforce. And William Wilberforce was in the British Parliament before the Revolution, and his goal was to end slavery in the British Empire. Makes my little goal of ending homelessness in America look weak. I mean, because they're making mint off of the slavery, and he decides, I'm going to do this, and he does this for 60 years. And finally accomplishes it the final piece is accomplished about 2 weeks before he dies. So this is a man who fulfilled his God-given purpose, and then you're not needed anymore. Come on into heaven. And I think that is so cool that he has this. Well, because I'm a reader, I love to read, and I read from different viewpoints. And I'm reading this book, and it's written from the Southern viewpoint of the Civil War. And so, the battles are named different, who's commended is different, and different characters come in that maybe don't make the Northern viewpoints. The Northern wins, so you tend to get their viewpoint on most history books.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this book, and it talks about this Bishop Wilberforce who is ministering to the Confederacy. And he's giving scripture about why slavery is cool. And I thought, this can't be related. This can't be the same guy. So I started researching a little bit, and this is his son, the son of William Wilberforce. And there's no documentation of what actually happened. But I put myself into his shoes. And I started to think, why would a kid whose father's whole life ambition was to end slavery come and encourage slavery? Why would that happen? And I started to look at my own life and said, I'm spending almost 18 hours a day with these homeless women and children that I care about. What's happening with my kids? What are they seeing? They're not getting anything of me.
Yeah.
And so what could happen if I don't change how I'm behaving is they're going to be seeing panhandlers say, I hate that person. That person stole my daddy from me.
Yep.
And I think that's what happened with William Wilberforce's son is those slaves, they stole my dad from me.
Yep.
And I didn't want that to take place. So yeah, I was pouring out, I was giving it all. And I started saying, you know what? I need to go home for dinner every night. That's where it started. I'm just going to go home 4 nights a week, 4 out of 5 nights. I am going to be home and have dinner with my family. It doesn't matter what's going on at the mission. I got other staff. You guys take care of this 2-hour period. I might come back if needed, but I am going to have time with my family. And then that started to feed into, not only feeding into my children, but then they were able to speak into me. And we strengthened each other. There was that family bond that was much more than just my identity as a poverty fighter, much more than this guy on the front lines fighting against homelessness. Now I got the family. So I got my identity. I'm still the poverty fighter. I'm still the guy on the front lines, but now I'm also the father, and I could take on that identity for this season. I'm the husband to my wife. She desperately needs, because she was lonely. She's hanging out with kids all day. We homeschooled our kids. She doesn't see adults, except for when she goes shopping. Maybe she sees a few adults, but she needed some interaction.
Yeah.
And that started to strengthen, bolster me in a great way. And then we got connected to a church plant. And so that started to bolster me and strengthen me. Because I know I'm hanging out with brothers in Christ and sisters in Christ as they're trying to plant. And we were a part of town in Spokane that was called Hilliard. And the motto was Hilliard Tough. And at one point, it had the highest crime rate of any place in the whole city. And it makes that brothel look like it was in a safe neighborhood compared to where we were living.
Right.
And we're going to plant a church in the midst of all this. We'd have people who were drunk and high coming to our services. And one thing I did wrong is because those were my people, I got to know them. I knew how to handle them. I quit. Instead of me sitting in church and doing the leadership part there, they're like, oh, take care of your friends out there. I should have trained them to help take care of my friends.
Yeah.
Because once I left there, they weren't taken care of.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just, it takes something bigger than just yourself. If I just stayed by myself and did those things, I couldn't make it. And today, I find myself, and you may have experienced the same thing, I don't have the same brotherhood as I had in the military. I mean, we were so tight with those guys. I knew everything that their wife said or did. I knew who was a good cook and who wasn't. I knew I was so intimate with those guys. I didn't have that in my civilian world. So I joined a group called Iron Council, and in that Iron Council we have a battle team called Romulus. And so my brothers in that, we feed each other every Tuesday night and encourage each other. It's not necessarily all scriptural and biblical. Now, some of those guys are not Christian, even some of them maybe even anti-Christian. But we are connected, and that feeds into me and strengthens me so I can go back out into the battle.
I think it's sound wisdom, man. I think, praise the Lord that you had the wisdom to have that realization about the impact that the pace you were going, even though it was that passion was directed at something good, to have the awareness that could potentially have a negative impact on the perspective that your children were going to have once they became adults is something to consider. And I think that wisdom could be applied in many different situations in men's lives who are passionate about whatever their career might be, whether it's working on cars or cutting grass or serving the homeless or standing in a pulpit and preaching. I was actually thinking about this yesterday. It's along the lines of what you're saying. You can say as a pastor, of a church, you can be doing everything right as a pastor, like pouring yourself into that calling. You can be doing everything right and ultimately still not be doing what you've actually been called to do as a man and a leader of the people who love and depend upon you, specifically your family. I don't know. I'm having to think about all these things now because I have a son, and it's very complex, man, to have that level of awareness. And the next question I wanted to ask you before we move on is, you referenced that when you initially interacted with these women and children at the shelter, you were really drawn to them. And eventually even more so drawn to them than the people who you were serving as a pastor of a congregation. What was it specifically that was drawing you to them, these women and children that you were serving? Because I want you to understand that that sounds odd to most people, that you would be drawn to these types of people who were experiencing this low, moment of just distress and anguish and confusion. That sounds odd because we want to hang out with people who are like us. We're drawn to people who are like us, who, maybe are entrepreneur types or maybe are, like doing the same things that we're doing or kind of on the same level that we're on, if we want to use those terms, So what specifically was drawing you to these women and children?
I probably couldn't have said this at the time. And it's something that when I look back and try to grasp what was happening there. But you're probably familiar with the end of Matthew 25, where Jesus is calling out the sheep and the goats, and he has them separated out. And he talks, well, you fed the hungry. You took care of the homeless. You did all those things. And he goes, when you did it for them, you were actually doing it for me. So I wasn't actually seeing those women and children. I was seeing Jesus. Mm. So when I do prison ministry, I go to the prison. I don't take Jesus to the prison. He's there hanging out. And if I want to see Jesus, I got to go to the prison. If I want to see Jesus, I got to go to the homeless shelter and hang out with these homeless folks. If I really want to see Jesus, I need to go out to the homeless encampments because that's really where it's destitute and dangerous and hard. And if I want to see Jesus, I got to go to the hospitals. That's where Jesus. Very rarely in the scriptures does Jesus seem to be hanging out at the church. He does, but it's not his primary place. He's always with the hurting and the wounded. And when he separates the sheep and goats, it's like, you came to visit me when I was sick. That's where I want to be.
Dude, I've never heard somebody say that before. Huh.
And I think people should be doing those jobs.
That's pretty, I'm just contemplating that because, that hits, brother. I don't think that we hear it put that way.
Todd Agnew, I don't know if you ever heard his music. He was probably probably been 2000s, 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. He had some songs. He had one called My Jesus. And in this song, he says, would Jesus even be accepted in my church? Would we be upset because he stained the carpet with his dirty shoes and his dirty feet?
Yeah.
And that song hits me so hard because I think at the church, we're like, oh, don't carry drinks in the church because you spill it. And then, one church I went to, they actually have, they use white wine or white grape juice because they're afraid of spill on the carpet and stain the carpet.
Yeah.
And I get the practical side of all that. I'm not really dissing them for that. We're so worried about the physical structure and the service, we forget that Jesus is supposed to be there.
Man, thank you for sharing that with us, Rich. Let's continue on, man. You get your 1.6 million raised?
We got the 1.6 million.
How long did that take?
It took 2 years. First of all, I had to reintroduce the mission to the community because they had forgotten we existed. Some of the pastors said, I drove past your mission to take somebody to Tulsa that was homeless. You drove right past my place, and you could have saved yourself that 45-minute drive and stopped in, and then you could have followed up with them. Because that's what started to happen right after it started getting known again that the mission existed, is people are just dumping people. And I said, well, that's not the role of the church. The church, we're going to be a resource for the church. We're going to feed them and shelter them. We're going to be the experts on caring for these men and women. But you can't just dump them and run. You got to stay connected with those folks. So we've got a new program we're working on to kind of help that out. I'll come back to that maybe later if we get a chance. But when you bring people to the mission, you got to be connected with them. The Good Samaritan, when he patches them up on the road, that's what those pastors were doing. They're patching them up on the road. They take them to the hotel, then he leaves them some money, so you should bring a donation when you're bringing your person. But then also come back in a few days and see how they're doing. And none of these pastors were giving donations, and they weren't sticking out with it. They were doing the first part of the Good Samaritan, which I applaud them for. But we got to do the full part, because that church is going to build a relationship. Because just like when I was talking about me, the identity was so important. I need to hold on to get my identity, but then connect back to my family, and then a larger community, the church community, and then the community at large. These men and women who are homeless have lost their identity. They've lost their family. They've lost their community, and that church can be that introduction back into their community, and then work on getting their family back. But not if you just dump them at the door and then drive off.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to watch how many of them, these pastors will bring them to the front door, and these guys will watch that pastor leave out the parking lot, and then they're going to walk off the other direction. They don't even come in. But what if that pastor walked in with them and introduced them and said, hey, this is Joe. I just met him. He's homeless, and I'd like you to get to know him. And I'm going to come back in a few days and just see how he's doing. And Joe's this guy's coming back. I better be sticking around and getting clean and sober, and getting some clean clothes and changing my life.
Well, even just the thought that wow, somebody would care enough to come back and check on me.
Yeah, that means something.
That means something.
And we think it means something just taking them to the shelter or just bringing them food. We think that means something. It's nice. I don't want to diss somebody who gives money to the panhandlers and those sort of things. I'm not going to diss all that. But what I tell people to do is, if you see someone who's panhandling, stop by Chick-fil-A. You're not going to. It's a beautiful sandwich. I'm going to get my Chick-fil-A sandwich, and I'm going to buy 2 of them. I'm going to buy one for you, buy one for me, and we're going to sit down. I'm going to get to know who you are.
Yeah.
And then when we're done eating, I'm going to take you over to the shelter where you're going to have 3 meals a day. You're going to have guidance counseling. You're going to get some fresh clothes. You can take a shower. A shower is, when I get done with a workout, that shower is beautiful. I love that shower. How would it feel after going weeks without a shower?
Yeah.
So you can provide that for them. And then a safe place to sleep where somebody's not going to try to stab them in the middle of the night. And I'm going to come back and check on you a few more days after that. Man, that just means a ton. Each of the other little steps are nice, but it doesn't really solve the problem. And in a way, it kind of exasperates it. Because they got to stay out there another day, get another sandwich, another day, get another sandwich, another day, get another sandwich. And they're never getting better.
Yep. So with Gospel Rescue Mission, what's the next steps once you get your money raised? What do you start on? Obviously, you're having to rebuild the reputation as you're raising the money. Over the course of the 2 years that you raised the money, have you at that point rebuilt the reputation of the organization?
We totally transformed the reputation. The reputation was a flop house. When I got there were guys who've been sitting around for 5 years waiting for Uncle Sam to come pay their bills. They're perfectly healthy. They could have done it, but if you got to wait to get your disability check. So they're sitting around, and they were drug dealing. It was a cesspool of sin, a cesspool of just survival, and it was terrible. But by the time we moved over, we were a place that held accountability. We got to know them, got to care for them, and then we started figuring out what's the root cause. Why are you here? So we started addiction recovery because that was a common occurrence. So we started addiction recovery. Then we started connecting with other addiction recoveries. I'm not the only show in town. I may not even be the best at addiction recovery, but I'm going to offer some addiction recovery. And I'm also going to introduce you to those folks over at Celebrate Recovery, those folks over at AA, those people at different churches will have different names for their addiction recovery. I'm going to introduce you to all those folks, hoping somebody will stick. Other people have... I discovered that if you have a felony on your record, it's a life sentence. You never get past that. It is always going to be brought up. It's especially with the internet era. I can look up anybody's crime and see what they've done. And with AI, it's even easier. I can go to AI and say, tell me about Joe.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me Joe's whole criminal history. You don't think employers are going to do that? Oh, of course employers are going to do that. They're going to know your whole story. Even if you get expunged, it's out there on the internet. So I started hurting for these folks. I said, you know what? I need to develop a course. So we have a course called Forging Past the Felony. And we're helping them get to where nobody cares anymore about your felony. One of the people I use is Adam Brown's story. You're probably familiar with Adam Brown's story, but he was a man of addiction, long criminal record, but nobody really cares about that addiction history eventually. He overcomes all that. Obviously, with some faith and Jesus' involvement really made that happen. But that's what I want to help for these people. They need that opportunity to get past that felony. And so we really work with them on that. But they got to change. You can't stay the same and expect people just, oh, nice little boobala, I'm sorry you committed that crime, we're just going to forget about it. No, you're a different person now. I see that you're not the guy who committed that murder. I see you're the person who didn't do that shoplifting. You're not that person anymore. And we helped them grow out of that.
Yeah. What was like to get this organization back on track? What was it just the lack of leadership? Is that what was needed? Like everything else was in place, but was that the main thing that was missing?
It was the direction, the focus. It was the determination. I'm going to make this happen because these people are made for more than that. They were not made to eat out of trash cans. They weren't made to stay in their addiction. They weren't made to take government funding and live the rest of their life in a squalor of an apartment that the government says that you should live in. They were made for more than that. And so it was a leadership element. I brought in the leadership and made that happen. I changed out my entire staff. God had to bring me those right men and women in different seasons. I've needed different teams. The team I started with could not have gotten us anywhere. The second team got us further down the road, and the team I got right now is getting us further down the road to where we want to be. And I'm sure that we're going to get to another point. I'm going to need a new team in order to do what God's called us to do.
I was listening to you yesterday, and going into kind of I want to get into kind of the details around the program that you guys use and what's been really effective for you guys at Gospel Rescue Mission to help people who are experiencing homelessness. But one of the things that I heard you say was you were referencing the scripture where Jesus goes to the fountain and there's a man laying on the mat, and Jesus asks him, "Do you want to get well?" And is that kind of the initial screening that you guys use? Kind of explain that to us.
So there's this concept of like no barrier shelters, low barrier shelters.
Yeah.
And I'm accused of being a high barrier shelter, even though I only have two requirements. You have to be willing to quit drinking and drugging after you check in, but you can be totally out of it, outlandishly high, stumbling, stupid drunk, and when you check in, that's fine. But really the only thing that keeps you out is you cannot be a level 3 sex offender. I'm not allowed to do that legally if I have families. And so that's a legal sort of thing. And you have to be able to make your own bed. You got to get up and be able to take care of yourself physically. So if you need a hospice or you need a nursing home, that's somebody else's job. We're not going to have, everybody else is for that. But the problem with the no barriers, you're not asking, are you willing to do whatever it takes to get better? Are you willing to pick up your mat? Nobody gets better just laying around on the mat. That guy stayed there for 38 years. That's a long wait. And so you say, if you're willing to pick up your mat, I'm willing to walk with you and keep going on with you.
Yeah.
And picking up their mat might be, it's me laying down my bottle. It's me laying down my needle. It's me laying down my joint. It's me separating from my family for a season so I can get well, and then I can maybe get restored to my family if it's safe and healthy to do. So yeah, they gotta lay that down or pick up their mat.
And it just needs to look like a willingness. Like you don't have it all figured out. It's not going to look perfect. No. It's not going to happen overnight. We just need to know that you're willing to try something different. just to try something different.
And as middle class folks and wealth class looks at things, they think, well, of course they're going to do that. I was talking to one of our state senators, and she's like, why can't I just put them in my car and drop them off at a shelter that has an open bed? Well, if they don't want to go, they're not going to go in the doors. You just took them to another community and dumped them on another community, and they're going to cause trouble in that community. So if they don't want it, you're not going to really help them out. And really, it's only about 20% of those don't really want help. But the shelter, even if you have a small barrier, they're going to come in. They'll want change. The ones that are willing to pick up their mat are going to keep coming in. But the problem with no barrier is it's not safe for those people.
Yeah.
I'm not going in there because I'm not going to get sober if I go into that place. I can't go into that place because it's dangerous. There's no barrier. And the only barrier is you got to be willing to pick up your mat.
Yep.
And that makes a huge difference. And the other part is not only will you pick up your mat, is do they believe they can? I mean, that man had to believe he was capable. Jesus says, pick up your mat. He goes, I can't pick up my mat. Are you crazy? And that's actually the words I get from him. I can't change. With the power of the Holy Spirit, you can change.
Yeah.
You can become a new man, a new woman. And most of them don't have a belief in Jesus, so I may not start there with that reference right out of the gate. But it's going to take him to open up their eyes. I can do this. We had one kid. He had been at the mission before I showed up as a kid with his mom. But now he's an adult. He's his own guy. And one day I'm walking out. I like to walk around the mission, just kind of connect with just whoever happens to be out there. And I walk past, and he'd been staying at the mission for about 3 weeks. And it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's going through the dumpster. I'm like, Jeffrey, what are you doing? And he looks at his hands, and he's got food in his hands. And I go, didn't you just have lunch like 30 minutes ago? He goes, yeah, and I ate a lot. I had seconds today, and I'm pretty full. And he kept looking at his hands. And it was such a habit, such an ingrained thing in him that he didn't think he was capable of going on with his life. So he put the food back in the dumpster. If it's in our dumpster, it's really past date. So it wouldn't have been safe for him to eat that anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just this realization. I don't need that food out of the dumpster anymore.
Man, I did want to ask you too, mentioning that specific man starting out experiencing homelessness as a child, and then, that affecting him even when he becomes an adult, and it just becoming like you said, like something that he feels like he's trapped by, like some sort of ingrained habit. To me, it's unimaginable to think about children who are experiencing homelessness. Like maybe this didn't hit me like it's hitting me now. This didn't hit me this way 9 weeks ago when I didn't have a child. But man, I look at my son and I'm like, there are infants and toddlers and who are experiencing homelessness. I mean, I've never witnessed that. You have witnessed that. To me, that would just shatter me, man. But that's a reality, huh?
That's a reality, and there's a lot of emotions that come in. I mean, there's a sadness, but there's also some like an anger. When I first started doing this, it's 24 years now I've been doing this and hanging out with these folks. There was a mom who had she had been on methadone to try to come off some addiction, and she had used that while she was pregnant. She had actually gotten street methadone and used that even after they have methadone clinics. We actually state fund people drug addiction with this. Anyway, so she was high while she was pregnant. So now he has to take some stuff, otherwise he's going to overdose. Gosh, the withdrawals a baby can't handle that. So I'm mad at mom. I'm mad at a system that's paying, giving her the drugs that got passed on to this child. And I'm watching her as a mom saying, what's going on? A natural mom instinct should not be, well, I'm going to use drugs. I don't care what my baby needs. I'm going to do the right things to make sure my baby has everything. But that's just not the way it is. And I think that's a change in America. I don't think that was always been this way. It's like and independence. I don't need all those people, so I'm going to do my own thing. It doesn't matter about these babies. I watch these women just ignore their babies. I think this is crazy. How could this be? And I don't understand. I get angry more than I feel bad for them almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the what do you do in that circumstance? Like, what's the best possible course of action? To leave the child with the mother, or to call in the state to take the children away? I mean, I'm assuming you've encountered that and had to make those decisions.
The state's interesting. Sometimes they take children. You think, well, mom's doing really well. Why are you doing that? And other times, mom is doing terrible, and I can't get him to come take the kid. Like, so we literally had this mom, and she wants to give up the baby. And my wife was with me. We had a season where she came and worked alongside me at the shelter on a regular basis. And my wife is just devastated. How could this woman give up her baby so easily?
I couldn't imagine seeing it, man.
It can't happen. But she goes up and checks her room. She's got spoiled milk in the bottle. The baby hasn't had her diaper changed for, about 12 hours and needed it probably 12 hours ago. I mean, it was nasty. She's got stuff all over the place. It's just nasty. And so we called Child Protective Services. Come on. And we showed this lady this, and she goes, "Oh, we're going to try to work this out." Like, no, this child can't survive with this woman. Why aren't you doing something?
Good night, man.
But another social worker, it could be the same agency, but another social worker would come in there, grab that baby, and took off, and it did something, and did the right things, and took care of them. So it's each individual worker. And I think most of them get into this because they care, but I think they get kind of crusted. So I'm not going to take this baby from this woman. That's not natural. Well, mom's not in a place mentally to take care of that baby. We're not saying do it permanently. Put them in foster care. Well, we're going to work on mom, and when mom gets better, then we can reintroduce baby and mom, and we can work together to help this child.
Yeah.
That's really where it needs to get is shelters need to work alongside of Child Protective Services or other agencies, depending on what they are, and say, we're going to shelter them. We're going to feed them. We're going to give them some classes. And I know you have some classes. Each agency has some other classes. And if we could supplement with that, we're going to do that too. And then we're going to find a time where we can work together in reuniting this family. That doesn't usually happen.
When I guess I wanted to talk through this, yet to learn from you kind of what's going on there. And that's very unfortunate. But it doesn't surprise me because any government organization, and the government is the one who has the power to take these children out of these situations. You don't have the power to do that. There's not a nonprofit out there who has the power to step in and say, we're taking this child. We're taking custody of this child. The state's the only one who has power to do that. And it seems to me that anytime government is in charge of anything, it's just mind-boggling. Like you can't even it seems like there's no logic applied. And just to highlight like the difficulty of the path that the Lord has called you to, and the people who are working alongside you. I mean, this is just, I don't think that people like me think about these situations, especially when children are involved. Because to be honest with you, Rich, I don't know how you go home at night and engage with your family and rest after witnessing something as tragic as a situation like that with a young child. I don't know how you do it, man.
It's kind of like why I keep doing it. I need to fix this. And that's again, I'm running the mission, and I think I've arrived. I'm the executive director of a gospel rescue mission. I should be satisfied now. I should be comfortable. This was my dream. This is what I aimed for. This is what I turned down in Stockton, California. This is what I went to my boss to get them. I'm living that now. But then God shows me that scene, and he goes, are you going to do something about it? I prayed for that kid. I prayed for that mom. He goes, yeah, but I designed you to do something about this. Mm. And I'm like, okay, well, now what do I do now? How do I do something? And so that's really where the Gospel Rescue Mission is at now, is trying to figure out what do we do to make the situation better going forward. Because that agency didn't help, because they have a funding model that says this is when you could take them, when you can't take them. We're not going to pay you to take that child in this situation. This other situation, we will. That woman's at a shelter right now, so she's safe. That child's safe because they're watching. So you can't take the child. But if I kick that woman out on the street and she's on the street with that same child, then they can do something about it.
It's totally broken.
But I got to be the jerk that says the woman and children on the way. And the social media is going to say, here's Rich. He kicked a woman and child out on the street.
Yeah.
I'm the jerk. When really I was just trying to get them, CPS to get involved and do their job. And other agencies also have this funding model that prevents them from doing what they want to do it. The people working there, these are my allies. They love and care for these people, but their funding model restricts and puts handcuffs on them, keeps them actually doing the help that these folks really need.
On that specific situation, like, what's the angle of attack on that? How do you make that better? Are you engaging with local or state government? And
I engage with every level of government. I talk to city council. Every time we get a new city council member, I invite them over to the mission. I give them a tour. I visit with them. I propose legislation when that's appropriate. It's not always necessary. Every month for the past 7 months, I've sent an email to every single state senator and representative in Oklahoma proposing a different bill every month. And these are things that we could do, and just putting it out before them. I get ignored by most, but I just keep sending those emails. Then I follow up with a phone call saying, I sent you about this bill. What do you think? And occasionally I'll get to visit with them and make these differences. And I felt like I was doing nothing. It was a waste of my time. But I'm starting to get some visits. I'm starting to get those senators saying, hey, okay, I see there's a problem. Some of my ideas are harebrained. I don't expect them. If they did all my ideas, we'd be in trouble, because these are ideas that seem good in my head. But I'm hitting with something every month.
Yeah.
And it's a constant process. I met our new mayor when he got checked in. I talked to the candidates as they're running for offices. If you notice, representatives and senators don't actually talk about homelessness and poverty in their campaigns.
Nobody does.
All they're talking about is that other person are no good. I'm better than that other person. But nobody's running on I'm going to take care of the homeless problem in my state.
Which is, it's so confusing to me, Rich, that this is a huge it's like just a travesty. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. That, look, man, we're in the United States of America. This thing that we see happening to our fellow humans, like our neighbors, we see this, and this is a problem, a tragedy that's like front and center. You see it you go to town, you're going to see evidence of it. It's right in front of you. Everyone. But it's never discussed. Nobody even wants to talk about it. Nobody even wants to address it. And it's crazy, because they want to talk about problems that a lot of them are just made up. Like, they want to talk about issues that are in large part just ridiculous, or maybe we don't even have any control over. Maybe we can't even, there's not even a way forward. But no one wants to talk about what we're talking about today. Nobody wants to talk about the problem that you've dedicated your life to solving. Why is that, Rich?
They just keep thinking somebody else is going to do it. It's a hard it's a hard task. I think about foreign mission field, what I originally got into mission, went to school for, and thought I was going to do. That's an easier place than all it's given here in America. They have so much opportunity that it's a hard place to try to minister. And because I don't need God, because I got the government going to take care of me. If I go to a third world country and tell them about Jesus, he's going to provide food, they're going to believe that. But here's like, oh, Uncle Sam's going to take care of me. I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to do what you say. This is a hard place to do this. But also, that means we're going to have to do something.
Oh,
yeah. I remember seeing a meme at some point. It said, I used to ask God what he wanted me to do or why he is not helping the people who are homeless. He goes, well, I called you to do it. And I thought, that's true. We don't want to really get involved because it's going to take time. Man. It's messy. It's ugly. And I have this program that we've developed that we want to help. So an entire community, and I don't know what the population of Rome is and how many people are here and how many homeless in Rome itself. But I know in Muskogee, we have 50 Baptist churches alone. Then you add in all the other denominations. In our county, we got 50, and just Southern Baptists. I'm not even counting the independents, and we got Pentecostals, and we got Presbyterians. We got everything. Every denomination just about is represented somewhere in this county. So we got over 100 churches. We have about 120 homeless folks in our county. And I think if every church says, I'm going to take one or two, and I'm going to bring them into my church family, and we're going to love on them, care for them. They would need training because otherwise they're going to accidentally help them relapse. They're going to mess it up. But they get the training. If those churches got the training, and every church just took one or two, there would not be any homeless people left. And the church is already designed. They're already there. All they have to do is give the time. But the problem is that guy's going to come to church. He's going to pee on your floor in the middle of service.
Yeah. He's
going to throw up because he had too much to drink, and it's just going to hit him all at the same time. And, puking up communion is not a cool thing. I mean, it's nasty.
Yeah.
But it's what the church is supposed to do. But we got this beautiful sanctuary. And one of the things I brought up to the senator in her community is like, well, you got these empty dorms right now. You got these empty dorms. There's college students are all gone. You got these empty dorms. Why don't you put your homeless folks in there for the summer? So, can't do that. It's, they're too unsettled, too unstable. Well, the churches are reacting the same way.
Yeah.
Can't let them come to our church because they're going to mess things up. We're not. They're going to interrupt service.
Yeah.
Most pastors don't have hecklers. Every time you preach in my chapel, you're going to get heckled. They're going to ask you some bizarre question about what you just said, or they're going to disagree with you. Mm-hmm. And instead of waiting after a service like most of us would do, they're going to interrupt the middle of the service. But that's what needs to happen. We need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And the church can do it. But I have a theory that the church did do that for a season. But then when the Great Depression came, the numbers were just so outlandish that the church said, we can't do it. We're going to give it over to Uncle Sam.
They felt overwhelmed, yeah.
Well, we gave up that right. And now we can't take it back. But I think we can. I think we can and we should, as a church body, say, we're going to come over there and we're going to get to know one of these homeless men and women, and we're going to bring them to our Sunday school class, and we're going to take them to lunch, but we're also going to get to know them. We're going to give them transportation to their new job. We're going to help them pick out the right clothes. We're going to practice interviewing with them. So we do that at the shelter, but it's not a personal, there's too many. Mm-hmm. I got 75 people a night at my shelter, and I got 9 staff. We can do this, but wouldn't it be better if that one person has 4 people who are just bombarding that one person?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Think about military training.
Oh yeah.
The higher student to instructor ratio, the less good the training's going to be. When you have more students or more instructors per student, the better training they're going to receive. Man, you touched on something right there that, man, I just think you hit the nail on the head when you said, the reason that this isn't talked about is because it would require action. And the action steps are pretty clear. Like, you're laying them out right now. Like, the action steps are pretty clear. And I just think you hit the nail on the head, Rich, because that is so true, man. We would rather talk about a problem like who killed Charlie Kirk. Why would we rather talk about that problem? Because there's no action steps. to solving that problem. There's no clear way forward to find an answer to that problem. Who killed Charlie Kirk, or aliens, or the Epstein files, or there's no clear action steps to that. I agree that those might be problems, but the reason that all the conversation happens around those problems is because we can talk about those problems and not be challenged to actually have to do something to find an answer or a solution. Whereas when we talk about homelessness, people around us that we see, I mean, these are our neighbors. These are our fellow human. They are created like us in the likeness and image of God. When we talk about this, all of a sudden, we start feeling pretty bad because we have the realization that there is a way forward. There's something that we can tangibly do. But man, we don't want to do that. We got too much other stuff going on. I just think you nailed it, man. I think it's the best answer I've ever heard, because I've wondered that. I've contemplated this time and time again. And to be honest with you, you're preaching to me right now. You know, my friend Stacy Marshall, she sent me a text the other day. She was on the show with her team at the Davy Shelter just about a month ago, and she sent me a text the other day and said, hey, you can come down and hang out with the guys at the shelter on this day, this time. We're going to be having a dinner. Well, I've got a new infant at the house, there's a lot going on, and, I can make excuses all day long that I can't take 2 hours out of my day to go down and actually be part of the solution, like actually take an action step. Yeah. What I'm saying is I'm preaching to myself, man, because I didn't show up, I didn't respond to that text.
And I listened to that podcast. I listened to while I was there, and she's on track. I mean, she's heading that right way, but it doesn't take 2 hours. So you take 2 hours, that's a lot, but can I sit down for 30 minutes? And I got to tell you, the homeless eat fast.
Yeah.
They are speed eaters. When I was training to be a ranger, and I was like, man, those guys eat fast, and these homeless put them to shame.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never going to eat again. So the food will go fast, but you have this opportunity just to talk for 30 minutes, acknowledge their humanity, encourage them to flourish, and then not give them advice, but listen to what they're saying and say, what are the questions I can ask for them to come up with their own best answer for that? Sometimes it's really obvious. We had a guy who wanted to go shoe up another guy's house. Well, I was pretty direct, saying, well, don't do that. You already got a felony. That's not going to be good for you. But most of the time, I'm just going to ask questions saying, well, what are you going to accomplish by saying this or doing that, and helping them process through just a small little issue.
That's good leadership across the board. That's good leadership tactics across the board, or mentorship tactics in any relationship or situation.
And a lot of times we think we don't have anything in relation to them. Like, we can't get them. We can't understand. They're so different than me. But I work with, 75 at a time at the Gospel Rescue Mission. The shelter in Washington was 120, 130 a night. I found some connection with every single one of them at some point. Something that I can relate to and understand. Yeah. Whether it's a simple loss, something we don't do well in the church, we're not even good at, is grieving. And we need to be learning how to grieve and help them to grieve. And so these folks, most of them are grieving the loss of something. And if we can walk with them through that process, but we can't walk through that process unless we've done it ourselves. I started studying grief, and all of a sudden I realized I understood myself better, why I had done some things in my life. I had this shirt that I loved, and it was just a T-shirt, and I wore it when I washed the car and I did work in the yard. That was just my shirt. I just would go, it was my go-to shirt. Well, I deployed, and I come back, and I had forgotten about that shirt until one day I go in the rag box, and there it is. My wife decided that shirt was better as a rag than on my body. And I was hurt, deeply hurt by a silly T-shirt. But what it was, I needed to grieve. That shirt meant something. It was from a box run in Germany. It had this run running through our box that we usually did the battles in. So they closed off all battles, and we had to run through the box that one day. And this shirt connected me to this event.
Yeah.
And I had to grieve my loss of that event. Boy, once I learned that, I said, well, that's why I was so moody about a stupid T-shirt.
Yeah.
And so when these folks are doing stuff, there's a reason they're doing it. They're doing something outlandish, dancing in the street. One guy took off his clothes and was dancing in the middle of the winter with these chains. Well, the common person going by, that's crazy. I'm not touching that guy.
Yeah, scary, yeah.
Stay away. But he's doing it for a reason. There's something going on in his life that made that reasonable in his own head. So I got to get to know him, figure out what he's grieving. I would say why he's waving his chains. I do want to say be safe. Don't be too outlandish, and you can't love him while he's swinging the chain and hitting you with it.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a time he puts those chains down, and then you can build that relationship and find out what's going on.
I agree with you where we're not good at grieving, and we don't. And I think in my life that's because we just live too fast, man. It's like that's the American way, right? It's just to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And when the especially in Southern culture, when something bad happens to you, man, you gotta sweep that under the rug. You gotta just pick up, and you gotta move on to whatever the next thing is. And those things stay locked inside of you, and they're doing something to you. You mentioned that earlier before we started the podcast. They're affecting you. And for me personally, I just think it's because I've lived my life from one thing to the next, always looking forward to what is the next big thing I'm supposed to be doing. Let's not stop and think about how these experiences that I had in the past have impacted me and have shaped me in some ways negatively as the man who I am today. Yeah, I think it's important to realize that. One of the things that, going back to our podcast that we did with the Davies Shelter, they focused a lot of emphasis on housing. And one of the things that I hear you saying is that at the Gospel Rescue Mission, you obviously believe that housing is an important element of the recovery process, very important element. But it seems like your angle is more on focusing on restoring identity and purpose in that person's life. Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, if you think that the problem of homelessness is they don't have a home, that's where your solution is always going to be a house.
Yeah.
If you think the problem is that they don't have enough food, your solution is always going to be food. But I just don't see that as being the cause of homelessness. 100% of those I've served have had a house at some point, or whether it's an apartment or they've been housed. 100% of them were housed at one point in their life. They've not been permanently on the street. 100% of them have been hungry, but they've all been fed once they check in. I get to know them and feed them. But what they don't have being restored is their identity. Who are you on the inside? Their loss of relationship, again, with family, with the church connection, or the bigger community as a whole. And if they don't care about the community, they can trash the park. Who cares?
Yeah. That's
not my community. And then I'm not, the community will say to them, you're not from here. So we're going to solve this problem. I'm going to put you on a bus and send you to where you're from. And something that I've noticed in Oklahoma is that we don't have hitchhikers like we used to have. I thought, well, why is that? Well, they don't have to hitchhike. Hitchhiking is dangerous. But if I can go to a church and say, I'm actually from, so they're here in Rome, say, I'm actually from Atlanta. I'll put you on a bus, send you to Atlanta.
Yeah.
They just got a free ride all the way to Atlanta without having to hitchhike. And it's a much safer job, safer way to hitchhike, because that church person's not going to pull them over, be a mass killer, probably. Hopeful.
Yeah.
And so they're doing that. We're just shipping them to other places. Well, they're in my community now. I need to care about them right now. They're here right now. I don't care where you came from. Right now, you're right here with me, and I'm going to connect you back to my community. whether you're here from, I wasn't originally from Muskogee, but I care about what happens in that town.
Yep.
And these folks can feel that same way if they're invited to be part of that community.
I think this conversation goes even broader than discussing this around people experiencing homelessness specifically, although I can in some way understand like being in the position that a lot of people experiencing homelessness are in. It would be like the ultimate loss of identity or community or purpose. I mean, it's about rock bottom as it pertains to that. But I think that this is also something, the reason I say it's a broader conversation, because this is also a problem that veterans are faced with. I think this is also a problem that certain Christians are faced with when maybe they've experienced some sort of hurt within a congregation that they've been a part of for maybe decades. I think that it's a problem that entrepreneurs face when maybe they get to an age where, you know, they can't engage with business and that lane like they have for their entire lives. So I'm just interested to hear your perspective on what it looks like. What is the process of restoring identity and purpose and community? Where does that even start, man? For people experiencing homelessness, but for people who aren't experiencing homelessness, who maybe have transitioned out of the military or out of some career field, and who are in a way sharing in this same type of crisis that can lead you to a very, very dark place.
Identity is the key. First of all, you have to understand who you are, who you see yourself as. How do I see my identity? I had my moment where I'm a soldier, and I was Captain Rich, Captain Shaus. That's who I was. That's my entire identity. And now I don't have that, and then I'm lost. So I got to identify that. That's what I was identifying myself as. But then I got to figure out what my real identity is. And the real identity isn't going to be anything in this world. As a believer in Jesus Christ, my identity comes from Jesus. Mm-hmm. Everything in me comes from Jesus. He is my identity. So one of our pillars that we have at the mission is my identity is found in Jesus. So when I'm thinking about who Jesus is, I'm going to say, well, he lived by the fruits of the Spirit. So how did he demonstrate the fruit? The fruit is the outward appearance. How does he get the outward appearance? He does the inward work. So if I want my identity to be shaped by Jesus, I need to work on that. That's what we talked about before, the prayer, and it's putting the seeds within me so I can have the fruits of the Spirit. I can't just look for fruit and expect it to be there. I got to plant the seeds if I want that to come true. But I have to identify, what's the identity? What is God wired and put inside of me? And I'm going to live by that identity first. But the identity has to come from God. I'm discovering it. I'm not creating that identity. I'm discovering, God, how do you see me? And if you go to the Bible, there's some different places that can give us a good picture of this. And in the beginning, God created man in his own image. So that's a good place to start. I'm made in the image of God. I'm not trash. I'm not that homeless bum. I'm not the addict. I'm not the felon. I'm made in the image of God. Man. I'm much bigger than all that. And it's so powerful when you start to see I'm made in the image of God. And then also that changes how I see other people. Racism and hatred and all that happens because I quit seeing Jesus in those people. They're made in the image of God too. And that's true for the terrorist who wants to blow up buildings as it is for the Christian who I go to church next to. They're made in the same image of God. It doesn't matter. Now, it's not saying all those people are going to go to heaven. So some people will say, oh, you're saying everybody's saved. That's not what I'm saying. It's saying you're made in the image of God. We got to see others and see ourselves that way. Then you fast forward to the Gospel of John. He says, we are children of God. And in John chapter 1, he's like, you're now children of God. Man, I'm a child of the King of Kings. That's my real identity. So that's where saved comes in. Because before I was just made in the image of God, but now I'm not only in the image, I am a child of the King. Yeah. And if I'm a child of the King, I'm noble. And that comes with responsibility as well. I need to live up to what my Father, if I'm living, he's the King, I got to do what the Father's saying and directing, because that's my identity. I do my behaviors because of who I am. Identity comes first, and then my behaviors are relation to those sort of things. So God says, I want you to do this. I'm going to do that because I am his son. Then you fast forward to even the coolest one is in Revelation, where there's a little white stone with your personal name on it, known only to you and God. That's like a pet name. And, your little sweet name that, he's calling you like, my son's my buddy, Slugger, whatever those names might be at a given time. That's God's little sweet name.
Mm.
And I want to live in that identity of God's sweetest love. Champ, this is what I want you to do. For me, that name is Warrior Monk. Warrior Monk, what are you going to do today? Well, Father, what are we going to do today? And then I'm going to follow in that regard. So identity has to be based on those three areas. And then more detail, I'm a poverty fighter. I'm a father. There's all those other roles play in.
Yeah.
But those roles, I play those roles out as my identity in Christ.
So how do you begin to present this to people who need to gain this perspective?
That's part of what we teach at the mission when they check in. Their identity is now, I'm a homeless guy.
Certainly. Yeah. Or a felon.
Or a felon.
Or an addict.
Yeah. Or I'm disabled. If I'm disabled, then I can get disability.
And I wonder what you think about this too, because, I've been to AA meetings, I've been to NA meetings and stuff like this. And the language there is essentially, once you are an addict, you are an addict for your entire life.
I would disagree with them on that.
Okay.
Because if I'm an addict, then I have to act like an addict. Addicts do certain behaviors. They have certain attitudes. They think a certain way. I no longer consider myself, I'm a guy who once struggled with alcohol. I'm a guy who once struggled with drugs. I'm a guy who once struggled with pornography. That's not who I am now. My identity is much deeper than all that. My identity is not going to be shaped by those things. And it's harder when it's a disability because you're identified by your wheelchair or your crutches or your walker or some of those things, or the ones we see more now, the PTSD and some of the mental illness that you can't see, but they're identified by that.
Because they've got a diagnosis.
They got a diagnosis, so that becomes their label. You might be struggling with PTSD, but that doesn't make you disabled. It just means you got to work through do things a different way. You're disabled from doing things the way everybody else does.
Yeah.
So that identity, you have to fight against it all the time. People try to pigeonhole us and label us. They try to label Jesus. And he only had one. It was Messiah. That was his one goal. I'm the son of my Father, and my job here is to come and save all humanity by dying on the cross and then rising from the dead. They were throwing all sorts of names at him. No, that's not who I am. I'm going to hold to this identity as who I really am. But he was tempted. That's why the devil is tempting him. You can get your identity from being a stunt man jumping off the temple. That'll get you some pretty good followers.
Yeah.
You can get your identity from being the king of the world. But no, that's not what he came to do. He came to save us by being the Messiah, being the Christ.
And so when you sit down with the people that you serve, again, helping them realize this, do you just use plain language?
Just straight language. They don't deal well with subtlety.
Mm-hmm.
They don't comprehend that subtlety. You got to be pretty direct and tell them you are made for more. And what would made for more look like? What would an ideal life look for you? So one of my classes, the Forging Past the Felony, I have a whole vision of my future life. And I push them to create their own future for their life. So mine is actually May 17th of 2047. And I said, this is what's happening on May 17th, 2047 in my life. And I'd love you to come be part of this party that I'm throwing on May 17th, 2047. And this is who I'm going to be at that stage. I'm not all there yet, but this is how I'm living and how I'm breathing. And one of the visions of part of that May 17th is I got all my teeth. So that forces me every morning to floss my teeth. I have flossed my teeth every single morning for the past 15 years because this vision says I have my teeth at that May 17th, 2047 event. That event is actually my 50th wedding anniversary. So when that event happens, I got to be treating my wife well today. Otherwise, that event doesn't take place.
Yeah.
And so everything's about this identity and creating this identity into that future place. Because right now they're only thinking, where do I get my next meal? Where am I going to sleep tonight? Who's going to shank me tonight? That's what they're thinking. They're thinking immediate. So I need to get them thinking further out.
Yeah, yeah. And not just them. I mean, that's That's a good exercise for every human being.
Absolutely.
To project that plan, and that's not an arrogant thing to do. Like, you're doing that for a purpose, because if you can project that and you can hope for that, it's then going to influence your actions on a day-to-day basis in the now. You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, I love that. I love that exercise, which makes me want to ask you, what are the other elements of that program? Because it seems like they could serve everyone, not just someone overcoming a felony.
And I do have a version of it that's just forging a new life.
Okay.
So it is, first of all, the center is always going to be identity. It's always going to be forging and figuring out what that is, chipping away the things that aren't part of us. We all have parts of us that have been caked on us at different times, from childhood abuse or neglect or just kids being kids. We got junk on us, so we got to clear that out. That's the identity, is the center point. And then I have to have a written constitution. And this is where the creed comes in. And my battle team has a creed. I got my own personal creed. And so that creed comes in. That's it's my non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Everything else is negotiable in my life. What I eat for dinner today, what I wear today. I have a plan for what I'm going to wear, but that may have to change. But those are non-negotiable. That's the top of my circle. So identity's in the middle, and then I got this up here. This is my personal constitution. And so my personal creed is, today I will take up my cross and follow him. I can drink his cup. Today I will speak life to myself and others. I will speak truth in love. Today I choose growth. I was designed to flourish and help my community do the same. Today I will love, pray for, and do good to my enemies in expectation that we can become friends. Today I will care for my whole self, so I have the wisdom, the endurance, the strength, the wisdom, and the passion to make the world better. Today I will persevere in battle or die trying. Today I declare allegiance to King Jesus. And you have to, so my identity is going to be based, now this is my constitution, this is my non-negotiables, this is what I'm going to do. And then the next part of the program is really thinking through, what do I negotiate on? Where are those parameters? So it's this idea of just consistency. I can't become an ultra distance runner today, but I can run around the block 3 times. And tomorrow I can run around 4 times, and then 5 times. But what am I going to do? So this becomes my endurance element, because it's going to be hard. When I think about Paul, when he has his last phrase there of, I kept the faith, it's almost like, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way this endurance is. I made it. I pulled it off. I kept doing it, even though I don't feel like it. That's that endurance piece. And then it's that vision. Then the vision comes in, because I can't get to the vision if I haven't done all this other work. I have to work through this, saying, I'm dedicated to this. I'm 100% committed to this result, and getting up every single morning and building that discipline. And then I have this goal, this vision of my life.
Yeah.
And it includes my children. And then after I created the vision, I started thinking about other people's 50th anniversary parties. And I go to those and I learn from them. And I learned at one person's 50th anniversary, I remember sitting at this table, and I knew the couple, obviously, but I also knew their daughter. I didn't even know they had a son. And he's sitting at my table, I'm visiting, and I discover it's his son. And I should have had a clue that there's an issue when I didn't know he had a son. And the son said, I'm only here because of mom. Dad's a jerk. I can't stand dad. I'm just here because of mom. And all of a sudden I projected myself to that vision. I said, how am I living my life? So my sons, my kids, I have 2 boys and a daughter. I want them there.
Yeah.
I want them to be part of all this. I want them to want to be there, not just checking the box.
Yeah.
So I have to live my life a certain way. So that vision comes part of that, but it comes from these commitments. I'm committed every day to connect with my kids. Before I came in to visit with you, I texted one of my kids like, hey, I just whatever I'm seeing or experiencing, I'm going to send something to them and connect with them as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But that's part of that commitment, going to the vision. From there, it's just going through life and trying to learn and grasp on a regular basis. It's building grit in your life. It's absorbing, accepting adversity. In America, that's one of the things that frustrates me. I love my country more than most. I'm red, white, and blue. I wear that almost every day in some fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I love this country, but we become soft. And any adversity, we just roll over and say, oh, poor me. Uncle Sam should do something about it. oh, my parents abused me, so I can do what I want now. I'm working with a guy right now who's he's 52. He has not seen his parents in 30 years, still complaining about what his parents did to him. I said, brother, you've had 30 years apart from your parents. You have not even had a decent word with them directly. You can't blame them anymore. But no, poor little boobala. I need to collect Uncle Sam's dollars because I'm hurting in that way. So it's building up this grit and building up this ability to take on adversity. And then having optimism. It can be better. My friend Jeffrey I was talking about, he didn't think life could be better. Life's only going to be as good as I can find food in the dumpster.
Yeah.
So I have to believe it's better. It's not pie in the sky, rose-colored glasses. You have to be touched with reality. But somehow I'm going to make this better. I'm going to find a way or make a way.
I deeply understand that, man. That is so critical. I deeply understand that.
And then the final piece of the program is really thinking of all that as a whole person. Physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, the whole component. Because I could be a great worker and ignore my family, and I could get to the top of corporate chart overnight, practically. But I wouldn't have my family when I got done.
Yep.
So I got to say, how do I move them along with me? How do I move in that direction? I might take me twice as long, 3 times as long. I may never get to the top, but I'm with my family, and that's what matters.
Yep. That's solid, brother. That's a solid program. I mean, that needs to be available to the public.
And it is.
Yeah.
I'm willing to come and help at churches, businesses, any of those places that would be willing to do that. Just have to contact me and I'll be there.
It's solid, man. I mean, those steps, I can so deeply relate to all of those steps have applied. Everything you just described has applied to me in some way, shape, or form throughout my journey in this life. I mean, just the optimism piece, I connect so well with that because I try to tell people, take it to something very simple and, not very consequential, but take it to running and racing. I tell people all the time, you cannot win unless you have the belief that you can win. Like, you're not going to get there unless you have this optimistic attitude that you can achieve this goal. And like you said, you still have to be in touch with reality in that belief. So for a race, I say, I'm optimistic. I think I can win this race. But at the same time, I realize that's going to take hundreds and hundreds of miles of training to get me there. That's how you connect it with reality, And
if you didn't do the training, you're not going to win the race.
That's exactly right. And that's how you connect that optimism to reality. It's just so critical. It's a very essential element because you're not going to win. You're not going to change. Things aren't going to get better. 100% is not going to happen unless you have that hope and that optimism that things can change, things can get better. You can indeed win or achieve your goal. It's almost a foundational step. You have to get there before you even start. I just think that's an awesome series of steps that every human being should focus on, and you've laid it out in a beautiful way. I do want to ask you about your book, Hero Quest. When did you write that?
That was probably 15 years ago,
okay,
give or take. And what I did is I looked at the life of the shelter I was living at, and I changed the stories and combined stories so that way I can. These are mostly based mostly based on true stories. There's a lot of little stories in there. The overarching story was total fiction, just so I can connect it all. Mm-hmm. But it's a fiction story about a man who's struggling to work with the homeless and to figure out who he is as a man. Wants to be the hero, has a desire for it. But in his mind, a hero is the guy on the front page. He's the guy who makes the headlines. And he figures out at the end, it's really just doing the day-to-day stuff, doing those little things. Man. And so the book kind of ties in with that. And since then, I've learned a lot more, is that the people who really shape and did history are the ones that we don't even know about. Most people don't know who George Marshall is. They know about the Marshall Plan. They probably heard about that. But they don't know that without George Marshall, we don't win World War II. the Civil War isn't won without a man by the name of Salmon Chase and General Halleck. None of those make the history books. They're only kind of going on, but they're the ones who coordinated to make everything else take place so they could win the battle. And so the real heroes are the ones behind the scenes, the ones who win the revolution. We're getting ready to celebrate our 250th anniversary. The real winners were those soldiers who gave their lives that we don't even know what their names are.
Man.
But we got this idea, well, a hero's got to be the one on the flagpole, and everybody's honoring that person. They get a holiday in their name. Man, I don't want to be that guy with a name. I want to be the guy who actually made the difference.
So this character in the book, basically his perspective shifts on what it means to be the hero.
That's where he has to shift. He has to shift from fame and fortune to actually making a difference.
That's awesome, brother. I can't believe you didn't bring me a copy today.
It hasn't. It's 15 years ago, and hardly anybody bought it because it's not a great book. I mean, I was proud of it when I wrote it, but I look at it going, well, I was still a young writer. And I've learned a lot since.
Yeah,
I've grown a lot.
Yeah, certainly. That's the danger of writing a book. Right. That's the reason I've been very hesitant to do it personally too, because I like to think if the Lord lets me live, maybe in my 60s or 70s, I'll be then ready to write a book. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's the right attitude or not. I'm not saying that everybody should be that way, because who knows? The Lord may not let you live. You know, I guess a better attitude would be, you know, take what experiences that you have now, and if you have some value to pass along now, the things that you do understand, put them into words, man, to share with other people. But I have been hesitant for that exact reason, because the longer the Lord allows me to live and the further he takes me in this process of sanctification, part of that is realizing how dumb I was yesterday.
Yeah. Very true. I get that. Totally.
Man. Well, Rich, I want to ask you, for the listeners who have heard your story, heard a little bit about your mission, gospel rescue mission, what you guys are doing now. I want to ask you, where is the best place for them if they feel led to support the gospel rescue mission and the work that you and your team are doing?
Well, obviously, we're in this era of websites. So we have grmok.org, and we have opportunities to give financially there, but also to connect. The connection will be more important. We got donors who give money, and I appreciate that. We don't take any government funds because I don't want Uncle Sam to be part of all this. You're right, government usually messes it up. A lot of the funding sources, like a recovery center, Secretary Kennedy just brought this out about 2 weeks ago. Recovery centers get paid not to help people get recovered, but they keep getting paid every time somebody relapses. So if they fail, they get paid twice. If they fail twice, they get paid 3 times. I don't want to be part of all that system.
Yeah.
But when you pay for us, you give money to the Gospel Rescue Mission, we're actually helping everyone we possibly can. I don't turn anybody away due to lack of space. I make room for them. We got couch beds. I got mattresses on the floor. I'm going to put in everybody we can, and we're going to interact with them. So we do need the funding, but more importantly, I need you. I need people to be connected with the people who are homeless in their community. Get to know their stories, get to know those men, to get to know those women, their children, get to know their story and connect with them. So we have a series of classes. We have one that's called Rooted and Ready. It's a 4-week experience of homelessness. We actually have challenges that will be given throughout the course for you to go out and see what it'll be like. Can you survive homelessness just in your own backyard where it's safe? And so we have some specific challenges. We'll have you do that. One of the challenges, how do you open a canned good without a can opener? People give canned goods to the homeless all the time. What are they supposed to do with this thing?
Yeah.
So we're going to put you in that challenge. How are you going to pull that off? And so we have this experience. We also have a worship team that comes with that, and they do some great work of connecting the songs to the message. So it's very connected in that way. And also it's a testimony. There's an old radio show called Unshackled. And so in that radio show, they would tell a testimony of someone coming to the Lord. And it was with sound effects and all this other thing. And that's what this experience includes is something like that. So Rooted and Ready is one of my favorite programs on that. We also have Supported by Four, which is training a community to say, I need all my churches to come together in this community, and we're going to adopt one person. And so it's the training to prepare them for that. So it's Supported by Four. We chose four because of the Bible story of the friends laying the thing. It could be more than four. It just can't be just one.
Yeah.
So it's Supported by Four. We have all sorts of different other opportunities for people to connect. We have our addiction recovery program. It's all online. People can see that and connect with that. So you can implement that in your own communities. I'm willing to come and speak and teach and train people to work with the homeless. But my very favorite is Our City, Our Streets. And with this one, we come to your community. You're a city official. You're frustrated with the homeless situation in your town. You're tired of hearing the social worker saying, we can't do this, we can't do that. But your city is, have you ever heard the story of Stone Soup?
Mm-mm.
So Stone Soup is this old mythological story where this guy comes to town and goes, I'm really hungry. I've been wandering for a long time. I just really need something to eat. And they're like, well, we don't have anything. We're just a poor village. We can't really help you out. And he goes, well, you know what? Do you have a pot and some water? I'll just make some stone soup. So he grabs a rock and he puts it in the pot and he's boiling the water. He goes, oh, this stone soup, it's going to be great. I can hardly wait for it to be done. But when it's done, I can have, it would be better if we just had a potato or two in there. And so all of a sudden, these people, they pop out. These two potatoes pop out and he puts that in there and he goes, oh, those potatoes really make it good. But you know what? So a little bit of beef would really make that soup great. And all of a sudden, a little bit of beef shows up. It's in the community, but everybody's saying, I don't have it. And then carrots and other spices and other things end up being part of that. Well, every community has the resources needed. They just got to know that it's there. And so Our Streets, Our City is a conversation with people in the community developing a strategic plan to how to use those resources that are already there. So that way you can actually help these men and women, which includes the church, it includes those social service agencies, it includes the government officials. It may include different bills and laws that need to be in place. But it's a conversation. Every community's plan is going to come out different. But I listen, I apply, and then I develop a strategic plan for your community to actually implement and make it happen. Man,
so you've made these programs available on a national level.
I am fully open nationally. Wow. It's the Our City, Our Streets is a consultant sort of level, so I do charge for that.
Yeah.
But it's very reasonable. You're going to pay less than you. We have a city near me that paid $40,000 for some group to come from California and do an AI plan for them. This is not an AI plan. This is, I'm talking with all of you. I'm actually talking to the homeless there. I'm doing the research of your city or your state or your county or whatever sort of places, and we're going to implement all this. And help you come up with a plan. And I can help you run it if you're not, but it's better if your community runs it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's real human to human interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to do some AI plan. I can Google and get on AI, any of the AI platforms out there and say, solve homelessness in my community. And it'll give me a 10-step plan. But it's the most worthless piece of junk.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing, Rich. You've been busy, brother. You're doing good work, man. I'm so thankful. You know, during this conversation, you've said a lot of things that are, one, extremely challenging to me and to the listeners, which is, that goes back to that whole iron sharpens iron thing, man. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the challenging things that you've said. You've shared so many pieces of wisdom with us here today. And I just want to encourage you, brother, to keep going and to keep putting the word out like you just did here today. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that...
I like to finish with this, is just to say, can you love those people that are out there? Look at them and imagine that is Jesus in a dreadful disguise.
That was one of the most powerful things you said during the whole conversation. Is if I want to see Jesus, these are the places that I have to go. For me personally, that was one of the most powerful things that you said. I never heard anybody put it that way.
I also want to share that I appreciate your team and what you guys provide with the podcasts. I don't watch the videos, but I listen to the podcasts every time they come out, and it inspires me to keep going. And so it's filling myself with more information. The Monday meets are a lot of fun. I try to answer the questions.
I bet you do, man.
So I'm thinking about what it would be like to answer some of those. And
yeah.
But again, it's another perspective. And I think we all need a different perspective and look at these things.
That's
I
right.
love the Monday meets particularly.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that encouragement. Well, I love you, man. And you guys who are listening, we will attach all of the links where you guys can find the Gospel Rescue Mission, any links that Rich wants us to put in to where people can find you, follow you, track what you're doing. That'll all be in the description of this episode, so we'll make it easy on you guys. If you want to check out more or tap into some of these resources and programs and trainings that Rich has developed, you'll be able to find them all. Just scroll down in the description and check it out there. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Rich. Enough said.